Good evening and welcome to the June 2nd, 2022 Parks and Recreation Commission regular video meeting and joint meeting with the Arts Council. I am Jody McCarthy, Parks and Recreation Commission Chair. In accordance with Proclamation 20-28.10 and the Governor's extended Safe Start order, tonight's Parks and Recreation Commission meeting and joint meeting with the Arts Council is using video conferencing technology provided by Zoom. The Zoom video of this meeting is being recorded and will be broadcast live via Zoom and will be uploaded to the city's YouTube channel later this evening. City staff and consultant guests are participating in tonight's meeting remotely. Other public audience members are listening to the meeting by telephone or via the internet. And additionally, the city has opened up the community center to provide a public space for viewing and participation in the meeting. Welcome to all and thank you for joining us tonight. As a reminder to staff and consultants, please have your cameras off unless you're actively presenting or answering a question. Commissioners and Art Council members, please turn on your microphones. Will the city staff please call the roll?
Chair McCarthy.
Here.
Vice Chair Struck.
Here.
Commissioner Cohen.
Here.
Commissioner Westberg.
Here.
Commissioner Markson. Commissioner Markson. Commissioner Burstein.
Here.
Arts Council Chair Mitchell.
Here.
Arts Council Vice Chair Scone.
Here.
Arts Council Member Blum.
Here.
Arts Council Member Moore.
Yeah.
Arts Council Member Becker.
Here.
Arts Council Member Harrington.
Here.
Arts Council Member Anamea. Arts Council Member Anamea. Roll is complete, Chair McCarthy.
Thank you. Tonight, before we get going, I just wanted to say a thank you to Sarah Birkenwald for her service on the Parks and Recreation Commission. We really valued her input and the time that she took to be part of the commission for several years. So thank you to Sarah. So commissioners and Art Council members, before we start the business of tonight's meeting, I want to remind everyone of a few rules to help the meeting run smoothly. If a commissioner or Arts Council member has a question, please use the raise hand feature. And I will do my best to recognize people in the order in which hands are raised. Everyone will be asked to limit themselves to one question and to one clarifying question if necessary, so that each commissioner or Arts Council member has a chance to ask a question before another person is given a chance. I just want to remind everyone that we're all here, we're all doing our best, so please, speak kindly with your comments and don't make anything personal. And finally, before you speak, please state your name for anyone who might be listening in the meeting. Tonight's agenda will not include in-person public appearances in accordance with Proclamation 20-28.11 and the Governor's extended Safe Start order. However, individuals wishing to speak live during the appearances portion of our meeting may do so by telephone or via Zoom or in person now at the Mercer Island Community and Event Center, provided, however, they registered their desire to speak with the city admin staff by 4 p.m. today. Our city admin staff will call on you by name or telephone number when it is your turn to speak. This is the opportunity for anyone to speak to the Parks and Recreation Commission and the Arts Council. All remarks will be addressed to the Commission and Arts Council as a whole and not to individual Commission or Arts Council members or staff members. If any person makes personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, or who becomes boisterous, threatening, or personally abusive while addressing the Commission, I may request that that person leave the meeting. When it's your turn to address the Commission, be sure to speak audibly and state your name for the record. Your comments will be limited to 3 minutes. I will provide you with a 30-second and 15-second warning when your time is about to expire. City staff, is there anyone who has signed up for appearances that wishes to address the Commission?
Yes, we have two community members via Zoom. Our first one is Larry Sarshin. I'm sorry, Larry, if I mispronounced that. I'm moving him over now as panelist.
Great.
Seem to be having technical difficulties doing that. Chair, would you prefer that I just allow him to talk? I think that there's an option for that.
Yeah,
Or I can, okay, let me try that. Oh,
him coming up now.
yeah. Larry, you're in as a panelist. It looks like your microphone is muted and your camera is off.
Is there a way for you to unmute him, Raven?
No, I can only ask to unmute
Okay,
and ask to start video.
How about this?
There
we
you are.
can hear you.
All right. The reason I came to this is I think this proposal provides us with a number of things we don't need, which is a lot more pavement in a city park. And I don't think it's really going to meet the stated purpose, which is to slow down traffic or to allow wider traffic. Colored pavement and art next to this trail is not what people bicycle through this park for. It's not, I don't think it's going to have any effect on slowing traffic down. The only thing that'll really work is some kind of physical barrier like a roundabout will serve to do the advertised purpose. I think it's really nice you guys want to put, artwork in this park, but it's not going to do what you think it's going to do. It's not going to calm traffic at all. So I think maybe the purpose of your effort is better directed elsewhere, maybe in coming up with better landscaping or other accoutrements to that trail that will actually accomplish the purpose, and like a real actual barrier to traffic speed. Otherwise, you're just going to waste money, and I don't think anybody wants to do that. That is my comment.
Thank you.
We also have one more member. That would be Rachel Holloway, and I'm moving her over now.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm here to represent the Mountain Biking Alliance for the reopening of Snake Hill. Other members are actually working right now, trail building in Pioneer Park, maintaining trails, and I think the majority of children are sitting finals. My son is doing a math final tomorrow, so I'm here as one of the only people to have some time to advocate for kids. So, it's been 10 months since the park closed, which was supposed to be a temporary 6-month closure. And I know on the agenda tonight is concern about moving locations. But I just want to be able to stress how much the kids need this park. And if you're going to be looking at other venues, that could take possibly a few years. I don't know, but a few years is a long time in a child's life. It is a critical place for our children to be able to go and exercise after school. Teenage depression and anxiety is a very real thing. If you don't have the facilities for our children to play in locally, they generally, well, this winter, it was obvious to me the difference in my child this winter was huge. So he's normally out on his bike every day after school, no problem. But this winter he was in playing games like all the other kids. The majority of kids nowadays just play computer games to unwind. It's very, very unhealthy. But we've taken the one facility away from them that they needed, you know, and I feel that they've been maligned and unfairly punished by the opposition to this. And it's not just me that thinks this, and it's not just mountain biking community. I floated a petition on Nextdoor, and 961 people have signed this petition, including a founding member of Friends of Luther Burbank and many neighbors of Snake Hill. So it seems very sensible that we have facilities for our children to be able to exercise in a healthy, normal way on
30
their
seconds.
So I'm just asking the city to safeguard this for them and to support, even if it's a temporary reopening while you explore other options. They need the space, and I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. If there are no further appearances, we will move on to the first item of business. So Raven is saying,
No further appearances, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. All right, the first item on the agenda is the department report, and I'm going to welcome Recreation Manager Ryan Daly. And Ryan, in the interest of time, can you give us the quick highlights from your report and then send us the rest by email?
Absolutely. And thank you, Chair. Ryan Daly, your Recreation Manager. I have just a couple of updates, and actually Jason Kittner also has a couple of updates to share with the Parks and Recreation Commission and the Arts Council. So first off, just want to touch on the Aubrey Davis Park picnic shelter. You'll recall that it was damaged by a fire last year and has been under rebuild, I guess you could say, for a period of time. We're anticipating that to be open very, very, very soon. We're prepared to begin reservations starting July 1st is our goal. So we're continuing to watch the punch list get carried out on that facility to get it back open to the public. And I believe that the construction fencing is actually coming down this week. So we're moving ahead pretty quickly with that opportunity, which is a revenue generating location for the recreation division. So more to come on that. I will keep you updated as soon as that's available for your various picnic needs. Pop-up story walk ends today in Luther Burbank Park. So if you have a flashlight, as soon as this meeting's done, you could run down and check that out. But it's been really great for our preschool groups, and thank you to Rotary for sponsoring that activity. And my final update before I pass it on to Jason is the Wild in the West MyVol art installation here at the community center. If you have an opportunity, please come by. Also, please knock on my door, drag me out. I'd love to walk through the exhibit with you. But it will be up through July 16th. So you do have an opportunity to pop by the community center to check that out. And that is, again, presented by MyVol, which is a tremendous partner for us here at the community center to be able to offer the MICEC gallery. So with that, I will pass it to Jason. And I just got to say, I was moving quick, Chair McCarthy.
You did pretty good.
Good evening, everyone. Jason Kittner, Chief of Operations. Just 3 quick updates. I will be quick as well. The Mercer Park Playground project is nearing the finish line. We're close. We're very close. The synthetic grass is wrapping up. The parks crews are doing some final cleanup at the site this week. We are waiting just on the weather for that final wear course for the poured in place surfacing. If we get that magic window, that it'll be finished, and we can get that playground open, and the public can use it real quick. So we're working as quickly as we can. The weather just has not cooperated this last month, unfortunately. Who would have thunk that May would have been so wet? Another quick update, South Mercer Playfields, the city and the school district are working on a joint project to convert Field 3 and Field 4 to synthetic turf at South Mercer Playfields. They're also installing lights, and they're replacing the infields on field 1 and 2. That synthetic turf is near the end of its useful life. We anticipate construction beginning in July and being done in early fall. So probably a 3 to 4 month construction timeframe for that. The school district is the lead on that project, and they're moving ahead quickly with that project as well. And then finally, just one final heads up to the group here on June 7th. So next Tuesday, the council will be reviewing and discussing the renewal of the Parks Levy lid lift. The current levy for parks operations that support athletic fields, Luther Burbank Park, open spaces, and rec facilities expires in 2023. And staff has a recommendation in front of the council to actually pursue renewal of that levy a year early before the expiration date. And they have 3 options in front of the council. It's in the agenda bill. There's a base levy rate, and then 2 options. One includes playground replacements as part of the project, and then or as part of the levy. And then option 2 is a Pioneer Park restoration levy component as well. So 3 options for the council consideration. June 7th is when they'll begin those discussions and into July. So just a heads up regarding that. And if you're interested, chime in on Tuesday night to the council meeting. That's it for me. Back to you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item of regular business is an introduction of the Arts Council and the Parks and Recreation Commission. And we'll go back to Ryan.
I'm back, Ryan Daly, your recreation manager. Actually, I'm going to be passing this one to the respective chairs, but I do want to just say I have maybe the unique opportunity to be the staff liaison to both of these boards. It's great. It's a great opportunity for me to interact with both, but this is a better opportunity. This is truly a unique opportunity for us, our 2 respective boards, to come together and communicate about the different work items that they have on their plates, which both groups have been very, very busy the last year and probably 2 years. So I do want to just pass it back to you, Chair McCarthy, and then to you, Chair Mitchell, to talk a little bit about what your boards are doing or have done this year, and then also to encourage the other members of these 2 groups to chime in and take the next few minutes to really share amongst the group what we've been working on and where we're headed. And then we'll talk a little bit later on in this meeting about the outcomes for 2021, where we're at in 2022, and what that looks like moving into 23 and 24. So with that, I will stop talking and pass it back to you, Chair McCarthy.
Thank you, Ryan. All right. So when he asked me to kind of make a list of the things that we have accomplished in the past year and a bit since we came back after the shutdown, it's been a lot. We worked on the pros plan. That was a huge chunk of our time in the past year and a bit, and I'm really happy that has been approved, and that plan is now in place. We also had the Luther Burbank docks design and had a subcommittee for that. And we also worked on the Mercer Island Community and Event Center policy and developing that, as well as a number of us were involved in the Mercerdale Playground design, and I'm super excited that after so many things, it really was a storm of things that how could we have known that it was going to happen? I mean, a fire at the factory that makes the playground equipment, who could have known that that was going to happen? That the playground is going to almost be open, hopefully by July. And then another thing that we've been working on is the Playfields Playfields policy, and I'm sure that I'm missing some things, so other people chime in. Peter, what did I miss?
Vice Chair Struck, actually, Jody, you did a wonderful job. I think you hit all the highlights, and I think in the we got a long meeting tonight. I think we should just keep going. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, then I'm going to put it over to the Arts Council Chair.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Mitchell. I am the chair of the Arts Council. We're very excited to join you this evening and kind of combine forces. And I'm sure that together we can accomplish more than separately. So it's nice to be here. The Arts Council has been doing a lot of work focusing on where we're going and next steps, especially coming back after the pandemic and bringing the arts back to the community and looking into what the community wants. And we actually did this just this past month with an arts summit where we invited local people in the community, Youth Theater Northwest, the JCC, and other organizations to come and talk about what they want and what they're looking for and what their needs are. And that was a really, really great experience to have everyone join and be a part of that and really get to hear that feedback. So looking forward to summer celebration and the things we actually get to be a part of this summer, and to have more representation out of the community with that, have Arts Council members be at things like Shakespeare in the Park and mostly music in the park and those other types of things, and really let the community know what it is we do, so that we can make more of a presence. And I think I would also like to say, see if Suzanne wants to chime in a little bit.
I think you hit it. You did a great job covering up the main points. Yeah, I mean, only I think is that moving forward, we're going to be looking at our policies and, you know, our long-term planning, and that's what we're looking forward to now.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, the third item of regular business is the Aubrey Davis Park Trail Safety Improvement Project 30% design. And we're going to welcome Capital Improvement Project Manager, Paul West.
Thank you, Chair McCarthy. Paul West, CIP Project Manager. I'm joined here tonight by our design team from KPG Somas, Liz Gibson, and her team. So I'm going to turn it over to them just quickly, but first I'm going to just give a little context. In April, we were here at the Parks and Rec Commission going over the results of the public open house and getting input on the 30% design. And now our design team is back to give you the integration of your feedback on the design with a more complete design. It's still draft form. It could be updated, and we're trying to get the final results out of this meeting tonight. So the design team will be presenting that 30% design to you, and there will be discussion after their presentation. And then we're going to look at options for art and placemaking in this project. And the design team, again, will present their options, and there will be discussion after that. So with that overview, I'm going to turn it over to Liz Gibson and her team.
Okay, thank you, Paul. My name is Liz Gibson. I'm the project manager with KPG Somas for the Aubrey Davis Park Trail Safety Improvements. And thank you very much for having us this evening to participate and bring the commission and the council up to speed on the design process. I'm sure most of you have probably seen the presentation on Let's Talk and the public open house. So we're going to briefly touch upon the highlights on the project to this point, just so bring people up to speed. I am going to share my screen. At some point, I will hand it over to my team members, Bryce and Fong, to help with the presentation. So I'm just going to share my screen here. This one right here. So as we said, this is the Aubrey Davis Park Trail Safety Improvements. All the people who are our stakeholders and involved, the City of Mercer Island, KPG Somas, and the Arts Board Commission members. And the project goals, once again, are to improve safety and create a more enjoyable experience for all of the trail and park users, focusing primarily on some low impact approaches for improvements on the trail section that we're looking at from 60th to 76 along the Mountain Sound Greenway Trail. There will be some high priority locations for improvements and looking at placemaking in the areas near to the restrooms and adjacent to the Gary Fiolia Playfields. Can you get, oh, I'm sorry. I realize you can't see the screen. here I am talking to it. Anyway, this was the project goals, so I've talked a little bit about that. Moving ahead with the priority improvement areas. So as we determined through the process, there are 3 prioritized improvement areas that we've been looking at. The first high on the list is the restroom facilities in the Playfields nodes near the Frolia Playfields here. The second would be the trail connection under the 72nd Avenue Southeast Overpass. So that's right here, just below the Playfields here. And then third area for improvements would be the West Mercer Way Trail crossing. So these are areas that are of more higher priority that we've been looking at to do some improvements, but there's also going to be improvements proposed from 60th all the way through the end of the projects, which would include removal of bollards, traffic calming measures, some signage and pavement markings, and high priority to restore the trail shoulders to the WSDOT standard for bicycle safety for trail users. So next we're going to jump into the 30% design as it is so far, and we've actually broken it out into 3 separate kind of buckets, because once we went through and looked at all of the improvements, we had to kind of look at what was high priority to fit with the city's budget of $350,000. So you'll see during this presentation, we've highlighted specific areas to do with the 3 different buckets or schedules. There's A, B, and C. The Schedule A will be our highest priority for improvements. Schedule B will be the next one, and Schedule C will be the 3rd priority on the list. And at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Bryce to talk through some more of this presentation.
Thanks, Liz. I'm Bryce Corrigan, project engineer with KPG Somas, working with Liz and Fung and Paul on this project. So as Liz described, we took our 30% design package. We calculated a cost estimate if this project were to be a complete package from 60th to 76th. That in turn, yielded a budget that was well exceeded the city's allocated funds. So then we worked with the city and our team to develop the 3 different schedules as Liz described, the restroom and playfield area, the roundabout area below the underpass, as well as West Mercer Way. And in order of priority based on the master plan and our public comment period, and just through conversations of where we think we could get the highest return on investment for the city's funds. So go ahead, Liz. So I'm just going to walk you through the trail improvement plan. The green highlights is just our attempt to identify and show which project elements are included with each schedule. They're not representative of a quantity of area by any means. We just wanted to highlight the work elements in each viewport, moving from 60th on the west side of the project limits to 76th on the east side. So in these 2 areas, we're installing signage, some shoulder reestablishment, and some directional wayfinding. As you approach West Mercer Way, you can see the magenta highlighted area. That is all Schedule C work, not necessarily going to be constructed with the city's current allocated funds. That removes some of the existing asphalt, replaces it with concrete to provide a visual difference. Lets users know you're entering a park facility rather than on a commuter trail. But the green highlights, again, are more of those system-wide improvements of the shoulder reestablishment, wayfinding, and regulatory signage, such as slow down, trail ahead, crossing ahead, watch for pedestrians, those types of elements. And the green, those green elements you're going to see consistent through the next few plan sheets. Here we get to these 3 intersection crossings. The one on the top of the page provides access to the basketball courts. There's some vegetation management, we're calling it, to increase sight distances and sight lines. So pedestrians using this crossing from the parking lot on 66 to walk to the north have access and clear sight lines so they can see bicycle users moving east and west throughout the trail. The hash marks that you see on the trail do encourage cyclists to slow down because they're entering a pedestrian zone, a pedestrian crosswalk, just like on a roadway. And this kind of treatment is consistent at all three of these locations, including access to the tennis courts. And then down there in the lower right, we have the bollard removal at the other entrance. On this sheet, we have the two main areas, Schedule A and B. Schedule B being the roundabout area underneath the 72nd Ave Southeast Overpass. That work would only happen if Schedule B was to move forward. All this green area is what we've categorized as Schedule A. If Schedule B does not move forward, the signage, wayfinding, bollard removal, channelization markings consistent to what you just saw at the other intersections would be installed at that trail crossing there at the overpass. The Schedule A work over by the restrooms, we can get into a little more. We have a blow up version of that area, but it does slightly increase the pavement to provide a more comfortable experience for all users crossing the pathway, accessing the restroom, as well as trail users moving east to west along the I-90 trail.
Okay.
And then again, we have the same kind of system-wide improvements, increasing sight lines, some signage, as this is the big downhill slope moving towards 76th. And there's other, depending on how this moves forward, we can always add some more signs or channelization treatment on that big downhill. And then as you approach 76 and North Mercer Way there, we have some more intersection ahead signage, some more pedestrian area signage, and just notification for the users that they're entering an area that may have pedestrians.
So as Bryce has said, we'll jump into looking at this in just a little bit more detail to give you kind of focus on those three improvement areas. As we said, this connection to West Mercer Way is Schedule C, so sort of lower down in the order of priority. But what we're looking at here is responding to people's desire to make this a little bit more, to have a little bit more placemaking at this area, to give you an indication of you're coming into the park and a highly used area where there's going to be pedestrians, kids, bicyclists, all that kind of thing. Also to give an opportunity for bicyclists to meet with friends and decide, okay, so I'm not going to ride through the park because it's really busy. I'm going to take West Mercer Way, or I'm going to ride through the park, but I know that that's going to be a little bit slower and I'm going to have to go with the pace and mix with all the people and the users of the park. So some of the opportunities that we're recommending here is replacing the asphalt trail here, no widening through here. There's a little bit of extra pavement here, which could be a node for meeting people and provides bicycle amenities, maybe a place to sit and have lunch or something like that. This area can be reduced, or it's still being massaged. It's only 30%, so it's just to give you an idea of what we're proposing. Also to make this connection here a little bit stronger, so when you're crossing over the road here, you've got some area for bike people to stop and look both ways for traffic coming on and through West Mercer Way and getting onto I-90. There will also be proposed some standard wayfinding signs and information kiosk and that kind of thing. The next improvement area is underneath the overpass. I did miss
yeah, Liz, I wanted to jump in at West Mercer
back
Way.
up for you. Yes, go ahead.
We do want to recognize that the city did just invest in this crossing, some crossing enhancements here with the median island, and we do recognize that that did increase safety at this intersection significantly, and the touches that we would add in Schedule A would only enhance that even more and allow and notify users that you are entering a park space rather than the commuter trail space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Ahead,
and I
Liz.
just wanted to touch on, so what we're showing here graphically are additional like placemaking improvements that could be put into place. These colored striping here would be in addition to some of the standard signing and striping that you would use on a bike trail. They don't necessarily have to be these colors. The pink obviously is just showing you the area that we're improving. But what we're trying to do is show you some consistency as we're going through the trail of those. We're going to using those improvement elements as we go through from area to area. So you'll see those popping up again. This area is underneath the overpass. And the consensus was through the public meeting that a high desire for putting in some kind of a roundabout feature. So this roundabout is, I would say roundabout, but it's really a flush paved area. It would be treated slightly different, maybe colored or something like that, that would make it visually pop out. But if there was somebody coming down this hill from the west on the trail, there's plenty of room. There's an ample area for somebody to recover, or if they blast right through on their bicycle, then that's what they're going to do. There's nowhere in here that we're not raising it or anything like that. We've also provided some regulatory striping to help guide people coming through this area, to slow them down, again, to give them some visual aid that they're coming to an intersection where there's going to be people coming out of the parking lot or coming from the downtown area or coming from the field through here. Also, just some placemaking elements, again, the striping coming in and out, just to give bicyclists a clue that they're coming into an intersection where there may be more people and more activity. The pavement area in here is slightly increased on this side, where currently it's just kind of a desired dirt patch. I think people take that corner and they skip walking on the paved area and they just walk through here anyway. So, and this helps the direction of people riding through here, not only coming down through this direction, but coming up the hill and through straight ahead. It gives them a little bit more riding room. The next area is our considered one of the high priority areas in front of the restroom. This is proposed to provide more of a plaza area, reconfigure the area in front of the restroom, where we would move some of the elements out of here and provide a little bit more space for people to perhaps sit and gather on the edges of it. It was configured so that as you're coming up the hill, this sort of directs bicyclists more at a 90-degree angle in the hopes that they would actually slow down and understand they're entering a plaza area and a different use, and there's going to be a lot of activity in that area. As you're coming through here, again, providing another kind of plaza area that gives you another heads up. Okay, you're coming from the west, riding north through here, and you're entering a space that's different from just your regular trail riding. Also providing some low fencing along the edges to try and kind of keep people channelized through the major crossing areas, so they're kind of all in one place and not crossing over wherever. And redirecting the pathway for pedestrians and kids and people using the ball field so that they come around and access it at a major point instead of being able to cross over and mix with bikes and pedestrians at any point coming in and out. And then Bryce, is there anything?
Yeah, this one in specifically has very little vegetation removal, some cleanup around the edges as you go in and out of the parking lot underneath the overpass, and a little cleanup where the trail intersects the restroom plaza on the north east side. And then jumping back to the roundabout, that one, the sight lines are pretty poor in the existing condition. So in the Schedule A situation only, we'd look to increase those sight lines by trimming trees back and providing a higher level of visibility on all four legs of this intersection, so that pedestrians can, if a cyclist is speeding through the trail, can see that cyclist and make themselves put themselves in a safer position rather than have them approach the intersection and all of a sudden be scared or alarmed by a cyclist riding through at speed. Go ahead, Liz.
I think I think that's all. Fong, we're gonna, maybe we should open it up for the commission to ask questions or any kind of discussion. Paul, did you want to add anything else to what we've said, or? We
No,
are
I think
going,
that it's
oh,
time
sorry, go
to
ahead.
hear from commissioners, that their questions, their comments.
We will, after we've talked about this portion of it, we have another portion that Fong will go through for the Arts Commission and talk about how we might incorporate art and placemaking into the trail as well. Any questions?
Great, thank you. Who has questions? Paul Burstein.
Hi, this is Paul Burstein. With just the Schedule A, given the public comments and concern about paving over Aubrey Davis Park, is there any net addition of concrete to what is existing today?
Yes, there is a net, well, okay, so there is net addition of concrete, but it's replacing the asphalt. So if you want to say net addition of impervious pavement, we went through and calculated that, and there's actually 420 square feet of additional impervious pavement, because we're proposing to remove a little bit up by and this is for the total project with all the schedules.
For Schedule A specifically, Commissioner, there would roughly be 630 square feet of new hard surface here, and most of that comes from the trail realignment and kind of addition of a little bit of pavement in front of the restroom facility where there's kind of some spotty planters, as well as these bench and trash receptacle and dog waste dispenser pads. That all goes into accounting for that hard surface, impervious surface area.
Yeah,
so
you can kind of see, I can sort of sketch it in. This is the edge of the existing trail right here. So there's a little tiny bit there. There is a little piece here. There's a little piece there. And I believe there is a small, like you say, I think it's just this piece right here.
Yeah,
actually.
just with the bench and the.
Yeah, and whatever was planted in here. But that's essentially, aside from putting in this new trail, we're taking out that piece right there.
Yep.
So that kind of accounts for that.
Excellent, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Westberg.
Thank you. I'm trying to find my unmute button. So the big difference in terms of information that we have in front of us that we haven't seen before when we were talking about concepts is the cost information. And we realize based on the estimates that the 30% design proposal in front of us would substantially exceed the amount of money that we have available. With that in mind, I do think we need to go back and take a hard look at what is in each of these schedules, and look also at what our objectives were for this project, which were to improve safety, as noted by Liz, improve safety and to enhance the user experience. And my recommendation would be, or my opinion is, that the improved safety is the paramount objective and enhancing visitor experience is secondary. So I would suggest looking at each of the schedules very hard in terms of what are the critical safety elements in each that we would need to make our top priority, and then what are the enhanced visitor experience elements that we could afford to do within the budget, or that we deemed, if they were over budget, deemed of sufficiently high priority to propose that the city council appropriate additional dollars. Safety is paramount, and while while nice to do, and while I liked some of the preliminary design ideas that we were discussing, that we've discussed in prior meetings and in public meetings, the fact is we can't afford to do all that. And what we have to focus on are the safety elements for this project. So I don't know how we would get about doing that. I mean, I have some ideas about some of the things that I think are more important safety-wise, but I did have a specific question about the what those thermoplastic
Thermoplastic.
Are those intended to be like low phase or low key speed bumps to slow bikes down, or like rumble strips to a car? What are those all about?
I guess you could say they're like rumble strips to cars, only they're visual rumble strips for people. They're just thermoplastic is just a product that you can adhere to the pavement, and it would be colored. So like you would do for a crosswalk, only.
Okay, but it doesn't cause the bike tire to bump or anything. It doesn't raise the surface.
No, it doesn't raise the surface at all.
Well,
And
there is a little bit of lip to it, but it's not enough where you're going to be bouncing. You know, you do feel
Okay.
it. You feel the bump on bump, but it's not a bouncing kind of bump.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, it's just, so that's my general comment. And based on that general comment, I would say there's certainly elements of Schedule B that I would recommend that we address and do before we completed all the elements that are currently showing in Schedule A.
Okay.
Or I mean Schedule C, whatever the green one is.
Schedule
I'm
A.
losing my paper
You're
here.
right.
Schedule
No,
A.
you're good.
Schedule A.
I think also just to clarify, and Bryce, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Schedule A incorporates all of the basic safety improvements that we're doing. So all the striping, signage, anything like that. And there isn't, and I don't think there's anything in the other schedules aside from perhaps Schedule B, like the roundabout, that specifically would be a safety improvement. That we tried to put everything into Schedule A that we could that would address all the safety concerns.
Right, so your repeated pattern at intersections, Commissioner, would be those thermoplastic bars, as well as those colored thermoplastic bars with the crosswalk ahead or trail crossing ahead or yield to pedestrian type signage. And that would be consistent throughout the entire park. And then the additional enhancements highlighted on this page in blue would be something it would go into that would like to have category. It would add additional safety measures on top of the system-wide safety
And what would those be? What would those additional safety measures be?
The roundabout construction here. So in its base case, we would install the thermoplastic lines going into these intersections, just like you saw on those previous intersection pages. And then in Schedule B, the additional measures would be the construction of the roundabout, where we're providing the center median, the additional channelization to divert traffic or to divert trail users up, separate them through this intersection, provide enhanced visibility on all four legs of the intersection. I don't know if that's answering your question directly. I hope I am. But Liz,
So
if you go back a couple pages, I think we could explain it a little
So
better.
it's more visual cues to a bike rider that you're entering
Yeah,
this,
keep one
this
more,
busy
Liz.
area.
Yeah, correct. So in Schedule A, this is what most, if not all of the intersections would look like. You have your crosswalk pattern and you have those regulatory signage for crossing ahead, trail crossing ahead, high use area, whatever they may end up being upon completion of this design effort. This is what that roundabout area would look like in a Schedule A configuration or Schedule A construction package. And then if additional funds were provided to this contract, we could install that roundabout configuration with the separation of the lanes through the intersection, the widened pavement, the visual cues that would further enhance those safety elements. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah, that
Okay.
helps.
Okay.
It helps to know what would be there under Schedule A.
Yeah, we tried to do our best highlighting these in green with the elements. So yeah, okay. We could always provide further clarity as we go throughout the design.
Okay. Because the point I've made earlier and made in the public meetings is you have to start slowing bikes down at the top of the hill. You have to start with those visual cues and those warning signs when you're opposite the tennis courts. Because by the time they get down to that roundabout area, and they're going at speed, it's too late.
Yep.
They're gonna be arriving too fast into that plaza area. I had some other questions, but I'll bring them up later. I'll let somebody else talk.
Well, thank you.
Vice Chair Struck.
Yes, thank you, Peter Struck. First, I'd like to just say that I echo Commissioner Westberg's comments on, really creating safety as the priority, and, enhancing user experience is kind of a secondary objective at this point, given budget constraints and so forth. I'm trying to, with the Schedule A, the green as shown here on the screen. And you talked about the kind of the strip and so forth. I mean, do we have any, again, hard evidence that this will work in terms of slowing people coming down the hill? I mean, or it's just, I guess I'm trying to think about, we're going to spend all this money and we don't really have any evidence that it may work. Hopefully it works. It may not work. I'm just trying to create a higher level of comfort.
You mean coming down the hill through this way?
Well, yeah, I mean, because again, the purple isn't there right now, right?
Right.
And that's
correct.
So people are going to coming down the hill, and they'll hit kind of by the restroom area, and so for that, I understand there'll be signs and so forth, but the kind of the strips you talked about that are going to maybe create a little bump, but that sounded like it really wouldn't affect bike users, or at least some of them. I don't know. But I'm just trying to get a, we're going to spend all this money. How do we know that the outcome that we hope to achieve will be successful? I guess is what's our confidence with that?
Well, I guess we can't say 100%, but I think that what we're providing or proposing to provide is to try and help change people's behaviors in a way that when you're, we had a lot of discussion about this when we first started the design process. What can you do to get people to slow down, and what kind of visual cues can you provide them to say, hey, heads up, you're getting into an area where you need to slow down. And I think that's one of the, I think the best route or alternative for that is to provide, well, the basic signage, but also we've talked about using other kinds of signage like that. That's maybe where the 1% comes in, that changes out. So, I mean, I know when I ride that after a while you ride a trail over and over again, you just start, the signs just become part of the fabric and you don't really pay attention to them. But we talked about doing things that changed up every couple of months, like a really simple vinyl sign or something like that, that would change the message and would keep kind of your interest or the visual cue fresh in your mind. And that would help slow people down. I think definitely the cue for the strips here will do that. Right now, you're just riding through here and there's nothing to say, I'm just going to ride at 20 miles an hour and down the hill and through. I definitely think that this is going to provide a sense of, I'm going over a crossing and I need to kind of slow down and get that cue. And it's all about changing people's behavior, and other than actually putting in physical bumps, which I don't think I think everyone would probably agree it's not very safe. I don't know whether we can guarantee it 100%, but
The other big thing I'd like to add is, Liz, if you go to the next page.
yeah, hang on.
The current alignment of the I-90 trail through the restroom facility does allow cyclists to take it at a certain speed, because it is a big softer radius, and you catch the downhill coming from the tennis courts, and then you shoot down the next downhill after you pass through this area. With the kind of the realignment here, and making it feel more like a 90-degree turn, in addition to the plaza space, it's certainly going to feel a lot different. You're not going to be able to take that corner at what cyclists are probably used to taking it at right now, because of the pavement changes and because of the realignment of that intersection.
And I do also think that the roundabout, if that was installed, would go a long way to helping
Absolutely, yeah.
slow people down, especially with all the pavement markings, kind of redirecting people around it and using some different pavement, different visual pavement textures. Not that would certainly help to do that as well.
Liz, I don't want to speak for the whole group here, but I think we're open to kind of figuring out the best use of both of these areas, because these are the two most commented and concerning areas of this section of the trail. So it's just finding that balance, right?
Right. Well, thank you for that. I have kind of final comments, and I'll jump back into line. First, I think that, yes, to the extent that the kind of the roundabout concept, or some type of quasi-physical barrier, you can be part of Schedule A. And again, I don't know what the costs are in that, but that's again where you got to kind of use a fine-tooth comb to go back through everything. Secondly, something that I think a lot of industries and organizations use is beta testing. Is there a way to try to, some of these strips, for example, you're talking about laying some down before you do a lot of this stuff and saying, does it slow speeds down or not? Kind of, I guess what you're trying to do with beta testing is to try to improve the confidence of saying, yeah, we think it's going to work. Well, let's test it before you kind of, do the whole thing. I don't know how, in this case, how likely that is, but just an idea.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Cohen.
Thank you, Don Cohen. A follow-up to Vice Chair Strzok's comments. You may have provided us some of this information at a previous meeting, but can you give us some example on the evidence? Show me the evidence. Are there other communities that have used some of these different things that we might have visited or something, and we can get a sense, or have somebody talk to the officials at those communities? That's what occurred to me, in addition to beta testing.
Yeah, we can definitely do that, and we have in some of our other presentations shown examples. Unfortunately, we don't have that piece here tonight, but we can definitely provide you with that information for your
I'm talking
use.
Thank you. I'm talking not just to see the examples again, but to get some input on whether the communities that installed them think they did what they hoped that they would.
Okay.
And I don't, a second question I had related to Commissioner Westberg's comment earlier about seeing what's really important for safety purposes. So just for example, in the current PowerPoint that is up, Liz, you sketched in some lines on that other version of this around the restroom area earlier. If the city decided, okay, let's not, thank you. Let's not create 600 square additional feet of hardscape. Let's not do that in these three areas, for example. Is something like changing that, does it help much on the budget, and does it compromise safety significantly because of some of the points that Bryce was making earlier? Again, I'm not sure we can answer all of these tonight, but those are the kinds of things that occurred to me when Commissioner Westberg was talking. This may be a less important one than some.
No, I definitely agree. There are, if we were to stick to the current footprint, the things that would go away would be, you know, significant, but not so significant that it would change, that it would be a safety issue. It would be the amenity areas. The one area that I would probably keep, that we would probably keep the footprint, is actually the edge of this trail here, because this is where it serves to get people, to give people a little bit more room around the restroom, and to get bike people more lined up to that 90-degree turn. If we keep to the existing edge here, as Bryce was talking to, when you're riding through here, it serves to just a nice big curve that you can hit that downhill going through here. So this helps in that respect. And right now we're not showing any surface treatment on here. So what we would do is also show some concrete scoring and that kind of thing, which would help also visually to slow people down and create more of a plaza influence or
Yeah, just
atmosphere through here.
Just to add on to that, narrow, like creating a narrow area in front of this space you'd likely see some of the same comments that you're seeing now. Wider seems to be better when you have this mixed use area to allow users to adjust to whatever other type of user may be coming through the area. As an example, I go outside of our office and use the Elliott Bay Trail down on the waterfront, and where the use is the highest, the pathway is 14, 16, 18 feet wide to allow for those commuter bikes going north-south, as well as the recreational walkers or dog walkers or joggers. So yeah, like that little sliver that Liz has her mouse on right now, I definitely want to keep that proposed edge, but maybe refine some of these other connection points a little bit. Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Suzanne
Jody?
Stone?
Yeah, thank you. I hope it's okay. Suzanne Scone, if I weigh in as Arts Council person. I do use this area quite a bit personally, and it's always very much concerned me. And the idea of building a plaza and running traffic, bike traffic through it does worry me. But I think don't neglect on the pathways coming in from pedestrians, mark those as well. So just doing a quick internet search, I see that you can do arrows with the bike stencil on the sidewalk, so that when people come from the parking lot or come from the baseball field or come out of the bathroom or whatever, they see that there's those caution arrows or and up the bike sign or whatever it is that is required, because give them a heads up, you know, because if they're guests to our community playing, you know, 8-year-old kids playing softball and they got to run in and use the bathroom, that might be a heads up for them. So I would encourage that.
Great.
Yeah, that's a great comment. Commissioner Westberg.
Thank you. Continuing off Commissioner Cohen's comment and the discussion about whether or not to leave that curve in there, I think there's some other areas within this plan where you could pick up some money and also address some of the concerns over impervious surface. For example,
I'm going to turn off the show. What are you doing? What are you doing?
To me, the seating area is kind of a nice to have, but not really a critical element to have in this. I think you could find ways to do to put the wayfinding sign is, or to put the trash receptacles in that wouldn't necessarily involve pouring a concrete pad to have them sit on. And I note, and I really was glad to see that you had put fencing in on the Playfield side of the trail to try to funnel traffic crossings to particular areas. I think fencing is also needed on the parking lot side, leading up to that path. You can see in the picture the number of social trails that have been made through the ivy. And so without some kind of low-key fencing there that would, again, encourage people to use the path, you're gonna continue to have crossings at various points coming across the trail in a very critical area. So I think from a safety standpoint, Schedule A should include fencing on that side as well, whether it's closer to the parking area or closer to the trail. I think you'd have to look at from an aesthetic and functional standpoint, but the social trails provide clear evidence that people take the shortest path between 2 points.
Yep. Okay, good point.
That's a great point. Okay, Commissioner Struck. Oh, he's put his hand down. Commissioner Cohen, do you have any more comments? No? Does anybody else have any more comments before we go on to the next part, which is the art elements?
Sorry, this is
Yep.
Commissioner Strug. I was on mute. Just a couple quick thoughts. I would second Commissioner Cohen's idea of, what would no net increase in impervious surface look like? I think over on the West Mercer side, that little bike resting area is probably a user experience priority or aspect, right? Yeah, right there. That you see what that looks like, because I know riders now kind of go off a little bit more into the park and by the restrooms and so forth. It'd be interesting to see what that would look like. And then second, kind of going back to the overpass area. I thought at one point and maybe it's shown there, but the entrance from the parking lot was going to be essentially fenced off. Is that what's showing now or not? I don't.
So what's currently showing is there's 3 bollards there. We're proposing to remove those. And that's the extent of those improvements within Schedule A as it sits right now, just removing those bollards.
So the entrance from the parking lot would remain in some form, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, I think
okay.
I think the direction is that it was important to keep that connection through for park users and for people coming up to use the trail up through, I guess, going directly east from here.
Okay, yeah, I know we had a long discussion about that.
Yeah. So I think the decision was made to keep it in for the time being.
Okay, well, I look forward to seeing what some of these ideas come back with. Thank you.
And Commissioner Cohen?
Yeah, just to follow up with Peter, I remember the conversation, and at least my view at that time was that I was not in favor of decommissioning that access for disabled people who, even though there are alternative ways to get in there, that might be the way somebody might want to get in there. But that was one of the reasons I didn't favor decommissioning that access.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's a great point. Okay, last comment, Commissioner Westberg.
Just to follow up on Commissioner Cohen, Don, that particular section of trail doesn't meet ADA standards. So it would have to be redone because the slope is too steep, and the handicap parking is down at the other end of the parking lot by the other trail that's close to the restrooms.
That may be what you said the last time too, that I just don't remember. But thank you for that info again.
Excellent. Okay, let's move on to the next section.
Okay, so we'll take I know we're getting a little short on time here, so we'll take a quick look at, we looked at some opportunities for integrating public art into the project, and I'm going to turn it over to Fong at this point.
All right, thanks, Liz. So there's really kind of 2 parts to this a little bit. So with placemaking, We have talked about placemaking through the outreach and kind of soliciting information from people, what they would like to see for placemaking elements. And these elements could be expressed through something that we can help create and kind of reimagine for these spaces, and especially for these public spaces, to build some sort of connection between the people and the place that everyone shares. But along with that is, placemaking could also be an artistic expression of many things. It goes beyond urban design, and it supports a lot of the cultural and social identities of the space. So these next couple of slides here that I'm going to go through, it's going to be basically a menu of items for art integration and also placemaking elements. So those two terms are kind of used intertwiningly throughout these next few slides here. So we're going to look at the first prioritized location at the restroom area. So this is a view of if you were coming eastbound towards the restroom facility. You see that we're going to have basically a decorative node in kind of the foreground. To the right, it's ball field, a widened trail section, and then beyond that, there's a decorative plaza, informal fencing, and amenity zone beyond that. So just so you have an understanding of that perspective. And as you approach this area, what you've seen kind of throughout some of the different sheet layouts that Bryce went through are these kind of colorful bands that kind of mix between the pavement markings. Pavement markings are, yes, they're kind of necessary for, slowing down bicyclists. It's a universal language, kind of like, yellow travel lanes on the road that tell you that you're not supposed to be on the other side of the road. And we thought with that, why not add a consistent kind of artistic placemaking element between those lines? And the colors really, like Liz said, doesn't really mean anything. It can mean that color or not. It's really a pattern, a texture, a graphic, something that can really express, the place. And we have a few examples on the right there of these kind of pavement graphics. And also how to tie it in for the whole entire trail system. So it's not just from one little segment in this area. It's this idea is that it could be used throughout the trail, so it becomes this consistent language, and also could be replaced easily as well. So just peeling it off, it's a different material than what the thermoplastic is. Thermoplastic is a little more permanent and long lasting. This could be a more of a lighter gray material, still durable, and slip resistant, whatnot, everything that you need for a trail for safety, but it could be swapped out as needed to just kind of enliven and refresh the space. I'm going to go from top to bottom and list on the left here of just the different integrated public art. Kind of went through that a little bit for the pavement markings and whatnot, but there's also the signage. This kind of has the same kind of mentality of, rotating signage that kind of speaks to the space. This signage could be vertical or horizontally, so it could also be on the ground or on a pole. So just think of, our skipping zone, that little, kind of sticker slapped down on the pavement, kind of cues into other bicyclists that, hey, kids are actually, using the space to skip or hopscotch or whatever. And then seat wall. Seat wall is another way to kind of integrate some placemaking or artistic integrated elements, decorative etching or, some kind of detail that kind of refreshes that a little bit. And then we have also park information and wayfinding markers. So that is a different type of signage, aside from what is the regulatory kind of wayfinding signage that you see throughout the trail system with the, the yellow and the white lettering. This is more of, a marker that's tall, has more of a universal symbols. It's a quick way to just visually kind of grab information. No, I'm looking for a restroom, or I'm looking for, the tennis court or whatever it is. And this really just shows the different facilities, park facilities, not necessarily speaking to the trail and, connecting different trail systems beyond this, but it speaks to just the park system and the amenities available. And then I've already went through the color surface pavement treatment. So I kind of went backwards a little bit, but these are just a variety of elements. Obviously, something that we can integrate into the project if we see that it's doable. We have a little bit of room, but then something to consider in the public art budget as well as we look at some elements. And then for the next location on Schedule B, so this is a view looking east. You're already kind of going down the hill, and this is right at the pseudo roundabout location. We talked about for this one that there would be a decorative flush kind of node treatment, and then a potential marker kind of kiosk at the corner. And so for art integration, this Again, the repeating, the idea of doing pavement markings, and then also like a burr mache of signs, since this is like a kind of a slope area where bikers could be going a little quicker. This is kind of like a heads up honk, or use your horn or whatever it is, or use your voice, something that kind of is a little playful, and kind of also allows for that traffic calming safety element as well. And then with the roundabout, we were thinking a flush treatment that's decorative, and if you kind of pair it with the pavement markings on the left, like let's say it's kind of an idea that Jody brought up about salmon. So if you had salmon kind of trickling throughout the trail, and then this is kind of the eddy, the roundabout that tells that story. So throughout the trail system, you have basically this language or this kind of identity that's kind of expressed throughout the trail, and it makes it a little bit more interesting to go through and have that kind of enhanced user experience. And then again, the marker here is just, again, another consistent element to bring to consideration. And then lastly, at Schedule C, the least prioritized location. So this is a view on the road looking towards the Mercer Way, heading northbound on Mercer Way. And it's showing basically the improved crosswalk location and the idea of doing a central node with additional amenities such as wayfinding signage and pavement markings. And then from a plan view, Liz did mention that there's some amenities, such as seat walls or kiosks, bike racks, and etc. So we were thinking, again, the consistent language of using that surface pavement treatment, using, all these elements are kind of consistently used throughout the park as far as a canvas for art. And so with like placemaking signage that kind of speaks to the community with, like the snail from the high school mascot, just something like that to kind of refresh these signs so they're not just your standard regulatory, safety signs, but they kind of really bring a little more vibrancy to the space and allows you to kind of, interpret it a little differently and, acknowledge the community and where you're going through, that you're going through a park and not just, not just a trail blasting through. So yeah, any feedback on any of these integrated public art elements? Again, this is just a menu of items to consider, and we are open to any other potential integrated art elements. As you can see, we have a few, a lot of the canvas is really, a lot of it is really pavement, or it's something vertical or something we can integrate, like, such as a seat wall or something with the facility. A bike rack, bike rack can be, turned into different ways to, you can make it into a different form to be a bike rack, but still be artistic. So again, that's just like another suggestion to add to the menu of items here. But if the Arts Council has, a public artist in mind that, really specializes in graphic design or just in certain mediums, we're just basically trying to show you a variety of ways to express that.
Great. Elizabeth?
Thank you so much, first of all, for your presentation. It was really helpful and informative, and I love what you put up there. But I would ask about using the rotating pavement graphics or even the rotating signs. What is that looking like on an upkeep maintenance perspective? And what is the impact of it in regard to, the environment and everything else? And what would be a benefit or a con to using a more permanent solution?
So for signage, we wouldn't suggest use anything that wouldn't be durable, is what I'm saying. We wouldn't be saying, oh, let's put this on a piece of cardboard and have it be art. It would be the same durable material that all the regulatory cautionary signs would be. So it'd be that retro-reflective material sheeting. We'd provide the specs for it so that it's made per the specifications that that maintenance would definitely learn how to maintenance would definitely know how to maintain, power wash. It would get the same kind of maintenance that any other signage would get. And then same thing with the pavement markings. I did mention something that's temporary. Temporary doesn't mean it's cheap, is what I mean. So there's other temporary, kind of adhesive, much like what was mentioned earlier about the beta testing. that material is still permanent, not permanent, but durable enough to withstand a long period of time. But again, we're talking about rotating art and whatnot. So there's this mindset of, okay, we're going to have this up for, a year. And that's probably as good as it's going to get. And if it starts to get kind of junky looking, there's this perception when things aren't taken care of. And so we want to make sure that wherever we're suggesting and providing for parameters for these elements, that it's easy to maintain, it's durable, it will last at least long enough as far as programming goes, however long you want to rotate these items in.
Great, I understand the idea of the rotation. I'm asking about the like biological and fiscal impacts of it. So if we were to choose rotating art, what are we looking at every year in our overall budget? Because if it's something that needs to be changed out every year, then that's increasing the budget as opposed to a permanent installation type of thing. And what is the biological impact? I mean, I think a lot of Mercer Island is really concerned about our parks, and adding pavement obviously is a big concern and all those kinds of things. So if we're adding extra materials that we're using and then just throwing away, that's just adding to the waste in the environment, right? So can you speak to the impact that it has both financially and biologically?
I think from a finance point of view, as I mentioned earlier, it's a canvas. So if it's going to be a sign, the sign plate would be there, but that adhesive could be removed. We have to do a little research as far as the biological part of it. Is there like compostable sheeting, all the disposable plastic and everything else we're using. We can look into some technology that maybe there's a sheeting out there that doesn't, it's not that plastic. Maybe it's something that actually degrades properly so we're not affecting the environment. But yeah, I think that's something to definitely consider, especially if it's going to be temporary, if it's not permanent, and we want to consider, obviously the waste produced. Planning wise, when you're talking about finances, that's a number crunching game, and we can give you some numbers on some of these elements and how much they cost. So if there's something that you do decide to move forward with, that you can actually bill into your annual or biannual, whatever, planning, so that you can consider, oh, okay, we have to replace something, every 2 years. So it might be a $200 cost for this sheeting or whatever it could be. But again, it comes down to finding a little research on what that material is and then giving you some numbers to work with.
I'd just like to add, I'm not sure we'd recommend throwing anything away. With the whole idea of rotating is it'd be cyclical, right? Every quarter you replace a speed limit sign with a speed limit sign and a graphic. And then 2 years later, that sign reappears, right? So it could be worked into a maintenance rotating schedule where you're not putting up a sign and then throwing it right into a landfill.
That's helpful. Thank you. I appreciate that feedback. That's just what I'm considering. If the Arts Council is going to go and take a look at this and consider our options, we need to know what the broader impacts of what all mean. So, so thank you.
Yeah, that would be actually an excellent way to do it, is to come up with 4 or 5 signs that basically get made right in the beginning of the project, and then they could just get swapped out, like Bryce says, every 2 years or something, to keep it kind of fresh and things like that. So yeah, that's one way of dealing with it. That would be good.
Perfect. Thank you. Rosemary.
Yeah, yes, thank you. Rosemary Moore, a member of the Arts Council. I would echo what Elizabeth said, and that I am concerned by the digging up of asphalt and replacing it with concrete. I'm concerned by the environmental effects of this, the increased use of concrete, the tearing up of asphalt, and simply painting the concrete or adding concrete art doesn't seem to me to really be the answer. I'm all for having attractive signage, eye-catching signage, but I do think we need to consider the environmental impacts of using concrete and plastic. And I would suggest these are parks. We want them to be as natural as possible. We can make them attractive by using shrubs, planting low-lying shrubs. So I think that's one thing that could be considered.
Okay.
Okay, any more comments about the art? All right, it doesn't look like there's any more questions or comments about the art part of the project.
Okay, so I think that pretty much that was all that we had as a presentation. And if there's any other questions that came up during that, we would welcome to answer them right now. Is there anything else that anybody had to add to this? And then we can let you guys move on.
I'd just like to jump in here and talk about next steps because we've gotten some good feedback from the Parks and Rec Commission on the 30% design, and the design can be refined so that we can bring it back to the commission in July, hopefully with the ability to get that as a recommendation to council. That's the goal here. So we really need to know if there's anything that's going to be of concern now, so that the design team can incorporate your concerns into the final design. And then as for the arts and placemaking, I think we heard some concerns there. I'm not as clear about how to make the selections of what ends up being incorporated there, and whether 1% for the arts is the vehicle for doing those things. We are scheduled to come to the Arts Council meeting on July 20th with other projects. We could also take this up again there. I'm not sure if that's what the Arts Council wants to do, but that's an option.
All right, Elizabeth, do you have a comment?
Oh yeah, the only other thing that I was going to say, if you're taking this back to City Council and you're talking about our options, is that I don't think that the Arts Council is opposed to anything that's been suggested. We just wanted more information. And the other thing to say being that I think that there's a way to incorporate the art into the things that are already going to be happening, right? So we have to have the signage. Can we make that an artful situation? Can we make the signage part of the art? Something we talked about in regard to the Luther Burbank extension of the docks and stuff and everything, right? So I would just say that I think there's plenty of opportunity for art, and it just is going to be our job to kind of sit back and figure out how we incorporate that. So I welcome any additional comments or ideas in that as well. So thank you.
Yeah, before we go to more comments from everybody, I just wanted to say, or like formally put it out there to the Parks Commission about officially asking the Arts Council to take over the placemaking elements part of it and have that be on their plate. Yeah, so if people could give me like a thumbs up, thumbs down from the Parks Commission about having the Arts Council take over the art and the placemaking elements of this project, and we'll concentrate on the other parts of the Aubrey Davis Trail. So Rory, John.
Are you talking about the 1%?
Yeah, I'm talking about working on this on the art side of it, like making the placemaking elements and the signage being there. They go away and come up with ideas for that. And I'm sure that they'll have some great ideas for that.
Oh, yeah, I'm okay with that.
All right, so.
Can I say something, Don Cohen? I'm okay with their taking the lead on that. I'm uncomfortable with if you're saying that the Parks and Rec Commission would then, just wash its hands of that, because those elements are important to the whole thing, and we need the expertise of the Arts Council. But I'm not personally at the moment comfortable just saying, okay, Arts Council, you go ahead and you decide what everything would be that we've been talking about here, and my views are probably similar to theirs, but I'm not sure exactly what you meant with their taking the lead on it and they're coming up with some recommendations. Great.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean, is have them do some brainstorming, because I feel like being on the Arts Council, that would be their forte, is being more creative than necessarily we would be. Ryan, I see you jumping in, so you have something to say.
Ryan Daly, Recreation Manager. Yes, I having worked with both groups and being in that unique situation, I would recommend the arts and placemaking be recommended to the Arts Council for review and deliberation and moving forward from there. That is their specific role as an Arts Council of the City of Mercer Island. So I think that would be a good element to move their way.
Yeah. So, Peter, do you want to weigh in about that?
Yeah, I guess I would follow kind of along the line of Commissioner Cohen. I didn't, I definitely have some comments on these issues. I kind of didn't add them at this point because I thought the Arts Council was going to kind of take the lead, but I think at some point I would definitely like to provide some input in whatever venue, but I'm happy for them to kind of take that lead and come back and we can share ideas. Thank you.
Yeah, I think having some other heads working on this is always helpful, if the Arts Commission is willing to, Council is willing to take that on. And I'm looking to you, Elizabeth.
I wasn't sure if you were going to call on anybody else or anybody wanted to jump in. I appreciate the concern. We're not looking to come in and take over your project, but we do have an understanding and an expertise in the arts. That's why we're on the Arts Council, right? And that speaks to performing and visual arts all the way across the board. So yes, we would absolutely love to come in and to take a look and to work on that and work together. So it's not a matter of we're gonna steal it from you. I promise we have plenty to work on. We don't need to steal jobs, but definitely we would love to take this on and look at it and then come back to you and work together. And I think that's the idea behind this joint meeting as well, is that this is a matter of working together, and the more ideas, the better.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you guys for that. And I'm going to go back now to the other comments. So Commissioner Westberg.
I want to make sure I'm unmuted. So with regard to refining the 30% plan, I know we're short of time, and I'm just wondering whether, if you have additional comments, it would make sense to send them to Paul or whatever. Because personally, I'd like to see somebody take a sharp pencil to the budget and see if there's a way that we could combine elements of Schedule B with Schedule A, and particularly focusing on the roundabout area. And also look real hard at where we're proposing to add more concrete and see if there's ways that those things we can cut back in those areas too. So I'll provide specific comments in that regard, Paul, to you, and then we'll see what comes from all that.
Awesome. Thank you, Commissioner Cohen.
Yes, Don Cohen. I had a comment. I think it was Rosemary who commented on the environmental impacts. If I got the wrong person, I apologize. Environmental impact of asphalt versus concrete and so forth. Is why, this has probably come up before. Why is the recommendation to tear up a whole bunch of asphalt and put down concrete? Is it in bad shape? Is it to be able to put painted symbols and things on it and artwork, or what? I just don't remember if that's come up before, because I think that her concern is one that's worth giving a little thought to, unless there's a simple answer that makes it necessary.
I think it's a combination of things. In some cases, it's to change the, like we were talking about, adding pavement in order to change the direction of the bicyclists and redirect people a little bit. So in that case, adding pavement on would, then you would end up with a strip where you just get a little patch of asphalt added on. But the other thing is that it actually, like, you've got black asphalt trail coming in. If you have a lighter colored pavement or concrete, it's an opportunity to score it differently and to get much more visual acuity of that you're coming into a space that's not just a trail, that it's a plaza. And I think that was the idea behind changing out some of the asphalt, at least one of them, not necessarily just for a canvas, but a visual cue that would actually say, okay, you're riding along the trail, and then it stops and it turns into, it is a sort of a plaza area that you have to slow down and see, that there's people and kids and all this activity going on. In other areas, it was more to give a little bit more space, like the area by West Mercer Way. There's a really nice crossing in there now, but we were just providing a more generous space for people to stop at the crosswalk. And actually that area includes redoing the ADA access going north-south, south on Northwest Mercer Way. So hopefully, and then the other areas where we've increased the pavement is usually to contain amenities like benches or a kiosk or things like that. So hopefully that answers your question. It's sort of a combination of things. There are areas where the pavement is not that great, but I think that the city's done a good job of going through recently and either planing it or redoing those areas where roots have pushed it up and that kind of thing.
Well, I guess this, Don Cohn, thank you for that.
Sure.
Consistent with Commissioner Westberg's, admonition, maybe some of those areas are ones that fall into the, okay, that might be nice kind of category rather than safety essential. I think I understand your point. When you get to these slow down areas, I hear what you're saying about wanting a contrasting color palette or whatever you would call it or something like that, and asphalt doesn't lend itself as well to that. So that's a safety issue that I am by no means an expert on. Some of the other things may not be. I don't know what the savings is. Maybe in some areas, a change from black asphalt to cement as you approach a slowdown area, maybe that's a good visual thing. I have no idea. So anyway, I think it's worth at least giving a little thought to. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. And Rosemary.
Yes, thank you. I was just going to add that, as Don said, that maybe one could give some alternatives, some thought to an alternative way of making it visually stand out rather than digging it up and replacing it with concrete. Maybe you can look into if there are ways to do it without having to do something quite so drastic.
Okay. Definitely something that we can look into.
Perfect. Well, if there's no more comments, then I think that we're going to conclude this section of the meeting. And thank you so much. I really enjoyed your presentation, and I think, yeah, I think there's lots of stuff to work with, hopefully.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. I feel like this is a good time to take a pause in our meeting. Ryan, I saw you pop up. I feel like, yes.
Chair, if I might, I would encourage the two boards to power through these next two extremely brief presentations, then take a short break as we wave goodbye to the Arts Council and continue the meeting. So that would just be a staff recommendation for you.
Thank you. I hadn't flipped the page yet to see that. So yes. Okay. So the fourth item of regular business is the 2021 Recreational Division Annual Report. And we're going to welcome Recreation Coordinator Eleanor Knight.
Right. Thank you. I'll take the opportunity to introduce Eleanor. She is just joining us. She's 2 months on the job here with the city of Mercer Island, and actually under 1 month in the state with us. So great to have her in the city now, and she'll be moving forward. She's put together the 2021 division annual report. And with that, I will pass it to Eleanor as I share my screen with the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Eleanor Knight. I'm here to just introduce the 2021 Recreation Division Annual Report. This is a great opportunity to do some clarification and for anybody to ask questions as they went through the report. And just a reminder that there's no action to be taken on this report, but we do encourage input as we start to develop the 2022 reporting tools.
And can I just confirm that you can see the screen?
Yes.
The right one. I didn't share the wrong one.
Nope, we're on the
Okay.
agenda slide. Yeah,
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, so just a quick agenda. I'm going to go through the report background, some division highlights, the cost recovery tiers, the year-end financials, and some key takeaways from the report. So for some background, we're really excited to be rebuilding the division to better serve the community and implement some services that meet community needs. In 2021, the division focused on meeting goals set by the strategy for the Mercer Island Community Event Center and recreation programs and services, while also developing a budget for the remainder of 2021 and 2022, and also delivering a limited set of recreation programs and services established as needed action items and phase 1 items. So some of the priorities in 2021 were to support gathering and events over the policy and procedure development and community center rentals to help encourage and support community welfare and needs. But in 2022, we're going to continue this support while also integrating policy development and bringing back facility rentals. Some division highlights. A big part of this incoming to this year is going to be identifying policy needs. So the Recreation Division measures success in enjoyment, participation, and meeting the cost recovery goals. Some of the highlights of 2021 outside of cost recovery are covered in the report, but here's just some key items. For policy, we're looking at a hands-on approach to figure out what policy and procedures we need as a division. And when it comes to participation, we saw over 1,600 summer camp participants in 2021, over 6,000 hours of athletic field bookings, and over 2,000 drop-in sport participants. We also had 5 great community events. Of course, they were Halloween weekend, the first in-person Illuminate MI, the Town Center Trick or Treat, the Prairie of Possibilities, which was identified by the Arts Council, and the Mostly Music in the Park concerts were reintroduced in 2021. So here's just a brief look at the cost recovery tiers. They're broken down, obviously, by those tiers, and you can see the things that we offered in 2021 are presented there. So we calculated these cost recovery percentages by dividing the annual revenue by the estimated direct costs. We use direct costs to include all specific identifiable expenses associated with providing the service, program, or facility activity or event. And you can see in the report for each item's cost recovery percentage broken out by item.
And if I could just jump in really briefly, Eleanor, we all, the Parks Commission and the Arts Council actually discussed the pyramid back early in 2021. As you'll see, the cost recovery rates for 2021 look really high. And there's a reason for that. One, we didn't offer a whole heck of a lot. And much of our costs were associated with administration, operating the facility. So things that aren't considered the direct costs. So that's why you're seeing that. Our anticipation is as we move forward and we continue to refine how we're capturing those direct costs, these numbers are going to come down much more in line with the minimums that are listed. And again, those are minimums because we aren't capturing those indirect costs. So that is a benefit to exceeding the minimum with our cost recovery strategy. So I just wanted to jump in and share that little bit of information.
Great, thank you. So this table shows our division budget and division-wide cost recovery. So as you can see in the budgeted column, these show the allocated funds for 2021, and the actuals include everything covered in the report and all indirect costs and miscellaneous revenues. So a big boost to this was bringing back athletic fields. That was great to boost our revenues, and you can see that reflected in the division-wide cost recovery.
Yeah, I would just add also to this slide, this is our overall, as Eleanor mentioned. So this isn't just the direct cost, it's the overall. But where we saw a lot of success, and Eleanor mentioned this in the athletic fields, was getting those back online so much quicker. That was a real benefit. The other thing that we were able to do was open up our drop-in programs at the community center, maybe quicker than we anticipated. We all know pickleball, and that fills the gym. And so by bringing those programs and having such success with those early, that drove up those revenues. The other aspect that was very strong was your summer camps. They exceeded revenue by about $30-something thousand, which was about 30%. And so very good turnout there. And that's, we're looking to those items as we build going forward. So just wanted to provide a little bit additional detail there.
Yeah, and this is great data for us moving forward as we start to implement new programs and services. So just some key takeaways from the report. 2021, of course, was essential in rebuilding the division to meet the new needs of the community after the pandemic. So by understanding the limitations of the division, we can start focusing on rebuilding our programs and services in a way that balances our capacity with community needs. So some goals moving forward include improving the ways we report financials and participation, while also engaging the community in decision-making. So of course, we'd like to hear takeaways from the commissioners as you went through the report. I can accept those via email because we are trying to be respectful of time.
And I would just ask if there's any input that anyone wants to provide now. Chair, I would look to you if we want to have that conversation today. I think just to kind of build on what Eleanor was saying, this is the first year we've done this, a report. And I will just say, and I'll speak for Eleanor, it was really challenging with our budgeting processes of the past to pull that information. What this gives us now is that baseline to continue to build off of, alter this report to provide the information that we want and we need to make decisions in the future. So when I say our team is open to change, I think that's really an important aspect to carry forward as we go into 22, or as we finish out 22, and we look to build these reports in 23, 24, and into the distant future. So with that, I will pass it back to you, Chair.
Thank you. I think we've received the report, and if anybody has any comments, that they should email them to Ryan. I think it's great for us going forward to be able to start tracking these things, and I think it'll be, really useful in the future. So we're going to move on to the fifth item of regular business, and that is the 2022 Recreational Division Services mid-year update, and we're going to hear from Ryan again.
Right back to me. Thank you. I will share my screen here real quick. And come on, computer's getting tired. Let me know if you see anything. Thumbs up. Green means go. All right. So what we're going to be discussing very, very quickly is an update on where we are mid-year in 2022. We just talked about 2021, and much of 2021 was getting things off the ground, rebuilding the division and setting a framework for 2022. Come on, please advance. Did it move? Okay. So I'm going to talk just very briefly about the background, the status of our services, highlights, mid-year highlights that we have, and where we're going toward the end of the year. Just a little bit of background, and you all know this because we just talked about it about 30 seconds ago, is the Recreation Reset, and that set us on a roadmap for restoring our services, approaching them in a new manner, but also in a phased and measured approach to delivering those. It aligned our priorities with available resources. I think sometimes there were challenges where we had a list of priorities and we may not have had those resources to go along. This really leveled that out so that Parks Commission, the Arts Council, the City Council can make decisions as we move forward on what to implement and when. It also leverages our strengths and the assets that we have to improve the ability to deliver the division services. We have great facilities. We have great relationships, and that's really been the focus for how we've operated back in 2021, but also to how we've moved forward here in 2022. Our 2021 services, the goal was to implement those phase 1 and immediate action plan items. And we just talked about those. You read the report, so I'm not going to go through all of them, but it was setting up that administrative function and really getting the community center open, getting your hub open to be able to expand. And we focused on summer camps, as well as park and facility rental or field rentals, special event permitting, and carrying out the arts and culture immediate action plan, which if you had a chance to check out Prairie of the Possibilities last year, there's a picture there on the right showing that, which was a great community event that was able to be offered in the pouring rain. But moving on to 2022, we set our list of priorities to maintain and expand the 2021 division services. We wanted to build upon what we'd already done really well, I felt, in 2021 and carry that forward into 2022. So we've continued those services. And one of our first steps in 2022 was implementing that new staffing model. Myself, as well as the majority of our division, were limited term employees, which meant our time with the city could have ended at the end of the year being limited term. But the council and the Parks Commission recommended that we carry forward a budget that turned those positions into FTEs. It also led to us hiring Eleanor, as well as a number of other staff members to carry forward that service delivery. It gave us that permanent staffing structure or framework to really build upon as we move forward. It appropriately resourced us, to say it shortly. We focused on developing policies and procedures to support service implementation, and the commission knows about all of those hours that we spent, and the Arts Council is going to know those hours very soon as we go down that road with some arts and culture related policies that we'll be working on later this year as well. And then finally, really our final priority is to offer those 22 services. We were really focused and excited as a team to hit the ground running in January. And that's really what we did to put us in a really good position here mid-year. So I'm not going to go through your entire staff report that you received, but in that it gave an update on where we are with the various services identified for 2022. And I'll just touch on the community center because I think this is something our community should be really, really proud of. We offered a number of drop-in activities. We opened up the fitness center. We have people passively using the facility right now. I'm in the community center and there's people sitting out in the lobby. That's what we are. And so that's a really good opportunity for our community to come in and utilize the resources that we have. We moved the operating hours up from 41 hours of access up to 50. We'll be making another move here in July to expand those even more, opening on most days at 8 a.m. to welcome in that morning crowd. And we implemented the facility rentals. And when we talked about through the strategy and the recreation reset process, getting that economic engine up and running, and that's what this division does really well, is facility rentals. And we're doing them better now. We're more efficient. We have staff that are redeveloping our procedures and how we meet the needs of the community, and hopefully increasing that access and that ease of access to using the facility. The Mercer room got a new floor last weekend. It looks beautiful. And we just had a large celebration in there today. So that's going very well. Excellent opportunity that we've been able to kick off here by mid-year. So I'm pretty proud of that as your division manager. We've expanded the summer camp offerings, and we're continuing to engage with our partners to offer various programs, whether it be the youth volleyball organization that's down in the gym right now, the variety of summer camps, kayaking, paddleboarding, Lego, you name it. We've expanded what those offerings are. And then we have the 2022 events. And when you actually put them down on paper, we're a pretty busy city. We have a lot of opportunities going, and it's really great to offer these to the community. And so we obviously hosted the MIPA Circus here at the community center. It was one of the first major activities that we offered. We have a Juneteenth celebration coming up later in June. The Mostly Music shows, 19 Shakespeare in the Park offerings this summer. We have a revamped pumpkin walk and town center Halloween event, of course, Illuminate MI and summer celebration. I mean, if you're not excited for that to return and to get down to Luther Burbank or to Mercerdale, those are great opportunities for us to come together as a community. And those are all things that have been essentially planned through the mid-year of 2022. So just some highlights, and Chair McCarthy mentioned a couple of these earlier, but the pros plan, what a huge undertaking for both the Arts Council and the Parks and Recreation Commission. The Luther Docks 30% design, expansion of hours at the community center. I'm not going to go through all of the highlights, but they were many, and I encourage all of you to share with us what some of those highlights maybe you experienced were as well. And I didn't list it on here, but I think the relationships that we have between our boards with staff are really strong right now, and I appreciate those. And to me, that's a highlight. It's the ease of conversations that we have to progress forward with the work plans that have been established. And I appreciate the support greatly from both boards. Year-end objectives. So we are going to be expanding the program partnerships that we have. A lot of that is summer, but we're really looking toward that fall period. We haven't offered recreation programming outside of the facility. So we're going to be looking for those partners that are able and willing to step up. We're going to be developing further evaluation and reporting tools. I mentioned earlier how difficult it was to compile that 2021 report. Eleanor is out front of that and already reallocating how we present that information, and also how we pull that information from our various systems. We're developing a donation management and volunteer service so that when those opportunities present themselves, we're in a much better position to seize them and take advantage of the support our community is really willing to give. And that's maybe been one of the challenges we've had over the last 1.5 to 2 years, is not being able to harness those opportunities. As I mentioned, planning for fall and summer, expanding the community center hours even further. Currently, we do offer up to 92 hours of extended opportunities at the community center. So if you're having a wedding, a special event, those kinds of things, we can accommodate them on private functions. And then continuing to develop those policies and procedures. And we talked about that with arts and culture. We've talked about that with donation acceptance, naming rights, memorials, and of course, those arts and culture policies. And then finally, we're preparing the 23 and 24 slate of services and the budget requests that will go forward to the city council. And I'll be discussing this with both of the respective boards later on, probably in July and in September of this year, just to talk about what those services would likely look like going forward into the following year. Next steps. I am going to keep you updated on where we are with progress in 2022. And then also we're going to return next year, probably similar timing, to provide the annual report so we can talk about the outcomes of 22 and what services were offered and where possibly some adaptations will need to take place. The commission and the Arts Council will be putting forth policy endorsements that we need to report on. We need to provide you with information on the success or the challenges that some of those policy elements might have and how we can adjust to those. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions, or if Chair McCarthy wants to send us into break, I would be supportive there as well.
Before we go into break, I see that Vice Chair Struck has some comments. You're on mute.
Okay, sorry about that. I just wanted to thank Eleanor for the report, and I had several questions that I sent in to Ryan, and she responded very promptly with really good answers. So welcome aboard, and I'm looking forward to great things from her. Thank you, Ryan.
And thank you, Vice Chair. We do appreciate those questions ahead of time, and I know a number of commissioners provided them for other opportunity or other topics tonight also. So thank you.
Perfect. Okay. With that, I'm going to say now that the time is 7:31 and that the joint meeting with the Arts Council is now adjourned. Thank you so much, Arts Council members, for coming to the meeting tonight. It was really appreciated. We will continue with the regular Parks and Recreation Commission meeting after a 5-minute break. So we will see you back here at, I'm going to say 7:37. And yeah, so if you could please turn off your video and mute yourselves. Thank you. All right, let's come back to the meeting. Perfect. Okay. The sixth item of regular business is to review and consider approving the minutes from the May 5th, 2022 meeting. Commissioners, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of the May 5th, 2022 meeting, please?
Don Cohen, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Peter Struck, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. There's been a motion by Commissioner Cohen and a second by Vice Chair Struck. Commissioners, does anyone have any questions or comments before we vote? All right, commissioners, please turn on your microphones, and will the city staff please conduct a roll call?
Staff is on its way.
Sorry. So it sounds like we're taking roll at this point.
We're taking roll. Commissioner
gosh.
Cohen put forward the motion and Vice Chair Struck seconded it.
Thank you, my apologies. Okay, Chair McCarthy.
Aye.
Vice Chair Struck.
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen.
Aye.
Commissioner Westberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Markson. And Commissioner Burstein.
Abstain.
Okay, the motion passes and the minutes are approved. The seventh item of business is bike skills area discussion, and we welcome Jason Kittner, Chief of Operations, and Elaine Summergren, Deputy Public Works Director.
Good evening. Elaine's going to share her screen with us for just a second. I know it's been a long meeting this evening, so we have a short presentation to hopefully get into the meat of the discussion this evening. So with that, we are here to talk about the bike skills area. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Elaine. Just a quick recap for the commission regarding the key dates regarding this facility. We did close the facility in October of 2021. Due to the unauthorized expansion and concerns over the bike skills area. We held a public meeting on November 15th of last year, where we brought a consultant in and helped evaluate the bike skills area. That report was officially released to the public on April 18th, and then we had a special Parks and Recreation Commission meeting to discuss this topic at the end of April, where we discussed both short and long-term options for reopening the bike skills area in Upper Luther and other facilities as well. So at that April 26th meeting, the commission voted to reopen the bike skills area in Upper Luther Burbank Park in a limited fashion on a temporary basis, a more simplified design, with the intent on the city finding an alternative location that could be brought online within the next 2 to 3 years. The commission recommended that preliminary design be brought back and reviewed and include opportunity for the public, meaningful public comment to be heard regarding that facility. No decisions were made by the commission regarding the long-term or the alternative location for the bike skills area. Following that meeting, and actually during the meeting, there was quite a bit of commissioner questions that were raised. And so staff decided to pause on the bike skills area and come back to the commission this evening. We received a number of questions and we provided responses to the commission in 2 matrices. Matrix 1 was attached to the agenda packet as Exhibit 1. And the second matrix was, we responded to questions this afternoon, got it back out to the commission this afternoon. Will be posted to the website and included in the meeting materials with this presentation this evening. But hopefully the commissioners all got that late this afternoon. My apologies, it's been a bit of a week to get stuff done, but hopefully you have those in your inbox. So tonight our focus is to discuss the site analysis matrix. The commission really wanted to see the consensus from the commission last time was to have a robust conversation about the different facilities and how staff evaluated those different facilities. And so the matrix was included. So the bulk of the conversation tonight is to provide feedback on that site analysis and then discuss recommendations for long-term planning to the bike skills area. And then If the commission so chooses, they may consider whether or not to continue the recommendation to reopen the bike skills area in Upper Luther on the short term, or prioritize a long-term solution with an accelerated timeline. So with that, we will open up for questions and discussion. We do have the site analysis matrix ready to go to put on the screen if the commission so chooses. But really, we open up for discussion. So back to you, Chair McCarthy.
Okay, thank you. And yep, so who's got questions, comments, etc.? Commissioner Burstein.
This is Paul Burstein. Jason, how would you propose the, if we decide on an alternative site, that it would be accelerated to be open? What would be the process that would move that along further?
So that's a great question, Commissioner Bernstein. So typically with public works projects, we have a pretty standardized process that's governed by RCW and state statute. The first step would be to go get a design team on board to help professionally design and engineer what this site would look like at that dedicated facility or identified facility. And then we would work with, as we began the design, we'd work with our design team to work to expedite that as quickly as possible. Get all the questions, engage with the user groups early and often, and try to streamline that early design process to help with the design and get it completed sooner rather than letting it sit for 6 months. And then ideally, we would have a bid ready engineer set of drawings, a bid packet that would go out to the public. I'm going to look to Elaine probably in the fall timeframe, late fall, early winter, and then get a contractor on board to construct. It wouldn't be ideal to construct in the winter months, but it can be done. And then ideally open the facility up in the spring. So that would be the expedited timeframe. I will say, you know, with public works projects right now, we are seeing some delays because of COVID. This project's a little bit more unique in terms of the type of work it is. May or may not have as many material shortages that we're dealing with on some of our other public work projects, but that would be what an expedited timeframe would look like for this specific project. Again, it was important to get a design team on board early and then start engaging with the different users early in the process.
And just to clarify, so the public input would come after the design, so you'd move forward quickly, and it would be before the design.
It would be part of the design process. So we get the design team on board, and that would be part of that platform as part of the design process, is to engage with the public, engage with the users, let them come in, talk with the city staff, talk with our consultant in terms of what those different features would look like. It would be part of that actual process.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Cohen.
Don Cohen. I want to ask some follow-up questions on the grid that you emailed later this afternoon, Jason, on a few of the questions that I had. And if Jody, if you want to stop me at 2, I can come back. So I appreciate your putting in writing these questions that I had raised the other day after I did the field trip out there with some of the group. So I see that permanent fencing will be included to separate the bike skills area from the other areas. That's good. The next 2 things about separate entry and exit, for example, that doesn't say that will be included. That says you'll consider it. I can tell you right now that at the moment, I will not favor a proposal if it doesn't have separate entry and egress, but I could be convinced otherwise as things develop. I didn't know whether that was intentional. Same thing on the next one, making better access along that paved street out to Island Crest Way. It's lousy now. It's only going to get worse. I think that kind of feel that ought to be an affirmative part of whatever's done. I've got a couple more. Jody, you want me to hold off? Or just
who else wants to chime in, or should Dawn keep going? Oh, Jason would like to chime in.
If I may, real quick. So Commissioner Cohen, good points. We got to you this late in the afternoon. You just have to read a little bit further on section number 2 and number 3 in the response. It says it will be included. The last 3 words of those are it will be included. So our intent is to include those elements in the project design. So the short answer is absolutely the safe entry and exit, the egress.
Okay, so same thing. So we're just talking wording. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
They will be included. Yep. We just didn't start our response with it will be included. We finished with it.
Yeah, well, it was the consideration thing that I thought was being included as opposed to the substantive, separate entrance or exit. So anyway, but thank you.
Yep. No, I will say, Commissioner Cohen, you bring up a good point, and it notes in here that we talked with the preschool association and the school district. I will say, and I met with yourself and some other commissioners on site at Dean's Park in particular, and we have different recreational amenities at that site, and it is important to have separate entrances and exits for a facility like this. As a parent with young kids on the playground, you obviously having a fence around the playground so your young ones don't wander off into other areas is really important. Even more important is you have, the potential for bike users in the same facility or same general area. So that is something will be included in the design.
All right, Don, do you want to ask a few more questions?
Yeah. If I can keep going. So on your having talked, I see that you said that you reached out to the preschool association, the school district. I know when we talked about this on Monday, a week ago Monday, those were kind of informal conversations. At some point, I think it's important that we don't get too far down the line without. I don't know how formal those views were of those two, and I don't know how the baseball people who use the parking facilities there all the time feel about this. The Volksmarch group, they're in there, they're around there all the time. There's some other senior walker groups that Ryan probably knows more than I do. And we haven't heard anything yet about how the bike skills people would feel about that too. So I assume that is either positive or at least neutral, or you wouldn't be pursuing this. But so there's a lot of groups to get in touch with. On the solicitation of input from people, you say that you would post some things within the park. I assume that means within the area west of the fence also, so that walkers over there have an idea of what's being proposed, so that they don't have to look at next door or something like that. Let's see, second to last one, my comment on the unauthorized use on the other side of the fence on the west side. I don't know whether staff had a chance to go out there since a week ago Monday, but there seemed to be some stuff going on there, and I appreciate taking steps to avoid that. Let's see, drainage system. Will the drainage, maybe we don't know this yet, but if the bike skills area will be drained by funneling it down to the bottom of that across the path into the ravine, or culverting it or something, some people may have some thoughts on that. So I don't know where it's going to go, and you may not know where it's going to go other than off of the BSA area. But I don't, none of us wants to compromise that area that's on the west of the fence in order to keep the bike skills area as dry as possible. Those are my comments at this point. Thanks very much for responding to those.
Elaine, I'll ask you to respond to the stormwater piece in just a second. Commissioner Cohen, your points are very valid. They're great. I appreciate you getting us the questions ahead of time. Absolutely, we are going to engage with the different users. We will post if Dean's Park becomes the preferred location, and I'm not saying it is, I'm not presuming that by any means, but if it is, no matter what location that we start looking at as long-term solution, we will engage with the different users in that area, and we will make sure that there is plenty of posting in different recreational areas around the facility so that everyone has an opportunity to engage in this process. Elaine, if you want to touch on the stormwater piece, that would be great.
Yeah, good evening, commissioners. Elaine Summergren, Deputy Public Works Director. Yeah, I think this is going to be really similar to how dealing with the drainage on the site would be similar at any of our parks. So we would have to look at this both in terms of if there's a possibility of tying into existing stormwater infrastructure or whether it's new infrastructure that's needed. I wouldn't say off the bat about Dean's Children's Park that it would definitely go down into that ravine. And certainly this would go through review with CPD to make sure that, you know, we're following everything that is required for critical areas, which would presumably be that area of Island Crest Park. So we are very sensitive to that. You know, this could potentially be a larger area, and we want to make sure that we're really dealing with that water responsibly and in a way that wouldn't affect the health of a forest in a different area just by diverting that water.
Thanks, Elaine.
All right, Vice Chair Struck.
Yes, thank you. Peter Struck. So if I counted correctly, I think there was 24 locations or sites, areas, I guess, really, that were identified. You know, some had very specific sites, areas within a park and so forth. Other ones were just, you know, Pioneer Park, could be anywhere type of things. So I was scratching my head trying to say, well, how do you go from 24 sites and et cetera, you know, down to what I'm going to call a manageable number to really evaluate, you know, and I threw out some ideas in the questions and the responses are, well, we consider this, we consider that. So I guess I'd like to just ask specifically, you're at 24 now. Ideally, you'd want to get down to a small handful to really focus on. How do you propose to do that?
That's a great question. I think I would pass it back to the commission to say, you know, staff identified a series of components in terms of our evaluation, right? Whether it's the user benefits, the specific site characteristics, or the site impacts, the different planning elements associated to it. You know, if the commission wanted us to weigh certain characteristics or certain components more heavily than others, that would be one way. I don't want to speak on behalf of the commission in terms of what, you know, you value more than something else. I think they're all important elements, but that might be one way to do it. And then we can certainly look at the matrix and say, okay, yeah, if you put, you know, if you weigh the site character of, you know, whether it's the site topography, maybe that carries a heavier weight than, say, something else versus the available utilities or, you know, something like that. Then we could go through and reevaluate and slim that list down. I think at a high level, though, this matrix shows, you know, the more green that's on the table, the higher the potential for a BSA in that facility. So if you're just looking at the list, you know, the more green in the list sort of rise to the top. So that might be another way the commission could whittle it down a bit further. But really, this is something that we would look to the commission for feedback from the commission in terms of how to actually, you know, weight this a bit more if we wanted to skinny it down to, yeah, I think 3 is probably a reasonable number to look at. If it's much more than that, it's, you know, it could be problematic, it could be challenging, but I think 3 would probably be a good number. Elaine, anything else to add?
No, I don't think so. The way that this is ranked right now is purely based on sort of the number of greens and yellows and reds. So you can see if they're all equally weighted, this is about how they fall out. So like Jason said, if there was different weighting that was associated with certain criteria, it could change that ranking, and we would look to the commission for direction on that.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Westberg.
Thank you. I'm going to pick up on Peter's comment about having 24 areas here. I think there's a list of 24 parks. I think that if you look at each one of those in reality, very few of them would be suitable for an activity of this sort, particularly given the fact that we're moving it, or we're contemplating moving it out of Upper Luther Burbank because of concerns about the environmental impact of this activity. So why in the world would you put it in another piece of another area of open space that is currently not impacted by recreational activity? Or likewise, why would you put it in a place like Secret Park or Slater Park or Rotary Park that offers very limited space for an activity of this nature? So I think you can quickly, what I did is I looked, as I went down the list, I looked at Dean's one-on-one with the next park down the list, and you can come up pretty quickly with some reasons why most of those areas from just a very practical standpoint could be eliminated from consideration. I think the reason they're on this list is there's space within those parks to accommodate an area for biking approximately the same size as what they have in Upper Burbank, but that doesn't mean that the space, it would be appropriate to use that space in that location. So that's kind of the way I dealt with it individually. But I would also like to, it may be a criteria that's assumed in some of these others, but I thought about, it should be located in a place where you can separate, contain, and control this activity, because it has a tendency to want to expand. I mean, another one of the issues in Upper Luther was new trails. Not only were new jumps and high jumps and everything being created, but new trails were being created. People were going off down the adjacent ravine and into other areas, and it kind of comes with the type of activity. So as we're looking at Dean's, I would encourage retaining the current boundary fencing for the whole area, as well as separating with fencing the children's area from a bike skills area, should Dean's be chosen as the final location. And indeed, applying that same principle to any of these other areas that we might consider, you have to have a way to contain that activity, or it's going to spread out and get away from you.
Ms. Don Cohn, I thought you were going to suggest electrifying that fence.
We could use, what's the approach they use with dogs? The silent fence or something, have every biker wear a collar? Is that the, no, I'm not proposing that.
I will say, just to address your comment, Commissioner Westberg, that I think the nature of a new bike skills area would be, fundamentally different than the one that has existed in Upper Luther Burbank Park, just by virtue of the fact that it's not going to be a dynamic landscape, right? This isn't something that's, we've established pretty clearly that this is not going to be a site that's going to be modified by users. But I do take your point, as well as Commissioner Cohen's, that there could be impacts locally on other parts of a park, of the context of the park, just by virtue of having more bikes around and more bike use on those trails. And so I think it's a worthwhile consideration and something that plays into, I think you're right, it does play into how these things were rated on their criteria. So we are aware of that potential, but not the expansion of the actual bike course itself in any official way.
Commissioner Cohen?
Don Cohen, have you gotten any input on this idea of Dean's Park from the bike people?
Not specifically since our last commission meeting. If you recall, there was quite a bit of public comment at the special meeting in April. And I think my recollection, and we can go back and watch the tape, my recollection from the users was they want the facility open. If it's going to go somewhere else, that's fine. Let's get it open. They're looking for, and to the public comment tonight, it's a similar line, right? They're looking for a facility that they can start to use again. And so that was
So you
That
haven't
was-
gotten, you haven't gotten anything yet specific to the Dean site. Okay.
Correct.
Because I'm not that kind of a biker, so I don't know. But if the group came back and said, that's unacceptable because it's not a wooded area, it blah, blah, whatever it is, then that might affect how you approach the next step, obviously. So anyway, thank you.
All right, what are some, Commissioner Struck, or Vice Chair Struck, sorry.
Thank you. I'm trying to think about how to move this thing forward. And I'm kind of coming to the conclusion, or at least one idea would be to just appoint a small subcommittee that could meet between now and our July meeting and try to take these 24 sites and the various weights and criteria, et cetera, and come up with a process of elimination, if you will, saying, well, if we do this, we come down to those 2 or 3 sites and so forth like that. Absent that, I'm open to other ideas. And then secondly, I think irrespective of what of how we kind of move forward on the longer term permanent solution, I do think we should at least have a discussion, as Jason suggested, regarding the our current motion or recommendation we have to council to temporarily reopen the Snake Hill location. And do we still kind of agree with that, or where do we stand on that? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that we need to get something for these kids up and going as soon as possible. So if we wanted to look, especially if we want to look at any other park besides Dean's Park, which has been proposed, that we definitely, I still would like to hold our recommendation to look at temporarily opening up Upper Luther Burbank again. Does anybody have any interest in being on the subcommittee, or let's get some thoughts, some weigh in on that, or looking at the matrix and the suggestion that's been made to look at Dean's Park as the location to move it to. Commissioner Burstein.
So I have a fairly strong opinion that even if we had a subcommittee, it will come down to Dean's Park or Upper Luther Burbank. I don't see any of the other parks as reasonably feasible to provide that kind of environment and skill that matches the needs of the total community. I think if we do go forward with temporarily opening Upper Luther Burbank, which I am supportive of, it will be hard to close it down later. And so we have to think of the implications of if once it's open, is Pandora's box open and the Furies are out of the box.
Yeah, I think those are really good points. However, the longer that we talk about different sites, the longer there's no
Exactly.
meeting. So
Exactly. That's why I think it's just choice of 2, and where do we go?
Yeah, Commissioner Cohen.
Yes, thank you, Don Cohen. Well, the commission passed a motion the last time authorizing or recommending the temporary reopening with a limited, limited scope, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think favor changing our mind at that and going straight full guns at the Dean's Children's Park one in a short term, because that wouldn't satisfy the public outreach issues, the environmental review and things like that. So I think I abstained on the motion to reopen Upper Luther Burbank, but I'm not inclined to revisit that because of anything that has occurred since then. And I kind of, on the substantive issue of this variety of parks, I kind of agree with Paul. There aren't very many on here on the list that are likely. You know, if you consider that Upper Luther Burbank is at least for the moment off the table for permanent purposes. I mean, Groveland would be a disaster. Clark Beach would be a disaster. I don't know about the more North Mercerdale hillside, but that's, you know, that's a beautiful area also, you know, and everybody's got their own beautiful areas. I'm not as familiar with a couple of these other ones like First Hill Park. Oh, that's flat anyway, so that doesn't do anything. I'm not familiar with the area at Homestead, which has a high ranking on this, or with the area, well, no, the next one I was going to say is flat. So I don't know, putting aside the issues with Aubrey Davis with the Department of Transportation and a master plan, I don't know whether there's anywhere in Aubrey Davis that's a good place, and because it would meet a lot of the criteria, other than it seems like Bike Skills is coming late to the party on Aubrey Davis, you know. So I only see a couple of them, and I have to admit that if I had to make a decision today, and we were going to have a Bike Skills facility anywhere on the island, if I had to make a decision today, I'd probably go with Dean's Children's Park with all the required caveats that we've been discussing and that I mentioned before, just, you know, for all the reasons that we've gone into. I'm not, I'm more convinced than I was before by comments from people like Jody, and some of the woman who spoke today reflected a viewpoint of the importance from a psychological viewpoint to teenagers and young adults. So I'm willing to, you know, sort of modify my my overall view of not thinking we necessarily can accommodate every single activity that every single group wants to have. But I'm willing to sort of cut some slack on that because I've thought about that and I respect that viewpoint. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Westberg. You're on mute, Roy.
So we can possibly move forward with this. I'm going to pick up on Peter's suggestion and make a motion that we create a subcommittee of 3 commissioners that will look at this, the issue of finding a recommendation for an alternative location for a Bike Skills area, and that they report back to the subcommittee report back to the January commission meeting.
In July.
Or July, rather, sorry, the July commission meeting with their recommendations for a preferred area.
Councilmember Reynolds.
Thank you. Do we have a second on the prior motion before I talk?
You're on mute, Peter.
This is Vice Chair Struck. I will second. Thank you.
Well, okay. Yeah, I'm just, I don't know if this is practical, but I'm just going to come back to what Chair McCarthy said, that my main objective is to get a facility open. And I'm going to encourage the commission, it's your decision, of course, to think hard about whether there's a way to pick a spot tonight. Because if you wait another month to make a decision and then maybe make a vote on it next time, and then it goes to the council and it gets to the council in late August or September or whatever it is, the longer we wait, the lower the chance this facility is actually open next summer. And I would very much like to get this facility open next summer, some way or another. Now, maybe you feel like you can't make a good decision and make it tonight, but look deep and make sure that you believe that before you go for the subcommittee route would be my advice.
All right. Rory, do you have anything to add to that? Sorry.
Chair McCarthy, if I may, just so the Councilmember Reynolds' point, just so the commission's all aware, our time frame to get to the council is probably going to be the second meeting in July. So We do have one opportunity to come back to the commission at the first meeting in July before that council meeting for the second meeting in July, but I will remind the commission there is no council meetings scheduled for August. And that if we don't meet this time frame, then it's going to be September, and then we're quickly into the budget season. That's not saying that we can't have conversations with the council, but the council schedule does get very busy in the fall with the budget development. So to Councilmember's point, time is important here. I'm reluctant to push too hard because I tried pushing last time a little bit, and you guys asked for some more discussion. So here we are tonight. I want to make sure you have the opportunity to have a good discussion and you have the information to make good decisions. But we are on the time frame is already impacted as it is. I will say, even with reopening, as I mentioned at the last commission meeting, reopening the facility in Upper Luther is still going to require a design team to come on board and help with that design. It's still going to take some time. Can it be expedited quicker than moving to a different facility? Maybe slightly, but not a whole lot different. You're still looking at a very similar time frame with moving to a different facility for a long-term solution as well. So I just want the commission to be aware of some of those other elements as well. Good discussion tonight. I don't want to take away from it, just food for thought.
Yep. Commissioner Vice Chair Struck.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate Jason's comments and so forth. But I look at this as a 30 or 40-year investment decision by the city. Not sure what the cost will be and so forth. So I think to kind of put pressure to rush us is a bit disingenuous. I think we should take our time. We've got a short-term solution and so forth. But quite frankly, I think that if we do have a subcommittee and we can meet, once or twice, if that's required between now and the July meeting, we can probably still come up with a recommendation, and it's still not scheduled to go to council until July or after July. And I guess, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cohen.
Yes, Don Cohen, thanks. What I don't understand is this, and I have a lot of respect for Councilmember Reynolds, is the public doesn't know anything about this Dean's Park proposal. I know it was on the agenda for tonight. It came up at the last minute at the last meeting. The staff has not even gotten a sense, I'm not criticizing staff for this, hasn't even got a sense of whether the bike people are interested in Dean's Children's Park. And we don't have anything formal from, or I don't mean formal in the sense of a letter or anything. We've got some anecdotal things. I really think that before I would be ready to vote, okay, let's go ahead with the process of Dean's Children's Park, that I think we've got to engage somehow. And I know that the answer to that always is, a survey is going to take this amount of time and it's going to cost $5,000 and so forth. And I don't know what the right way of getting information is, but I don't think that the city wants to be in the position of being criticized for, quote, transparency issues, rushing to judgment, et cetera, et cetera. And on the other hand, I'm not sure that a committee or a task force is the way to go. I'd rather spend that month gathering input than because I think, no disrespect to the people, to Commissioners Westberg and Struck, I think that the chances of the committee coming up with Dean's Children's Park, if there's going to be a facility on Mercer Island, is pretty strong, unless there is significant pushback from from meaningful user or impacted groups. And so anyway, that's a long way of saying that I'm not ready yet, Craig, on going your route. And so that's why I kind of agree with Peter, not necessarily on the subcommittee, but on let's stick with the motion from the last time. Let's reopen the Upper Luther Burbank on the limited basis, and let's proceed a little more deliberately on where this facility might be. That's my viewpoint.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Westberg to create a subcommittee that was seconded by Vice Chair Struck, I believe. So let's vote on that. And I would say this is a very short subcommittee, and we'll come back and report in July on what they have found. All right, can the city please do the roll?
Yes, Chair McCarthy,
Aye.
Vice Chair Struck,
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen,
I'll abstain at the moment.
Commissioner Westberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Markson, Commissioner Burstein,
Nay.
All right, so I believe that was a majority. Is that correct, Raven?
No, it's not
Yeah.
a quote.
Because we only
Is
had
it-
3. Okay, so what happens with that then?
The motion fails.
Okay, so then does somebody want to make a different motion for that? And we gather information. Personally, I'm in favor of still looking at opening up Snake Hill temporarily and continue with that and get more information. I feel that Dean's Park is probably where it's going to end up, but I don't disagree with getting more information and voting on it in July, as long as we have enough time for it to come to the city council at the July 17th meeting.
This is Commissioner Westberg. Well, the question is, how are we going to organize that effort? Who's going to take the lead in getting
Yeah.
additional information? Who's going to define who it is we need to hear from
Yeah,
and reach out to? Is this a commission role? Is it a staff role? I mean, all of a sudden,
yeah.
the commission is kind of in the heat of things. That's a function I thought a subcommittee could
Yeah.
do.
Yeah,
But I'm not wedded to the idea of a subcommittee necessarily. I'm just trying to
somebody
envision
want-
a process that would move us forward.
Well, how about this is Don Cohen. What if you made a new motion that included the subcommittee being responsible for figuring out how to engage public, et cetera? Because that wasn't in your motion. I thought your motion was just, figure out which of these you wanted to recommend. So but maybe you meant that as part of it. I don't feel so negatively about having a task force, as long as I don't have to serve on it, having a task force. Well, I have very strong feelings, and they cloud my views on some things. But I don't disagree with what Commissioner Westberg just said, that if the subcommittee wants to say, okay, here are the user groups that we want staff to get in touch with, unless there's a good reason that they shouldn't, and tell us who it's going to be. And as far as I'm concerned, they can go ahead and do it, So it moves things along on both tracks. It, both on, here's what the subcommittee came up with. They think such and such is the preferable location among these 24. Here's 2 other ones that are at least worth keeping on the list. And here's a list of types and names of user groups and impacted groups that we think need to be, at least at a conceptual level, touch base with.
Mhm. Ryan, do you want to jump in here?
I wanted to revisit that vote that we had a second ago, which we do have a quorum and we did have a majority within that. So I just want to point that out, Chair, that we moved forward thinking that that didn't pass, but it
That's
did.
what I thought.
I thought too.
Sorry to interject. But
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
Ryan, I thought that's what happened as well, that it passed.
Well, I'm not the parliamentarian here, but how many people are there here from the commission tonight?
There's 5.
And there were 3 yes votes.
There's 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought there were 6 here, but I forgot that that the 2 Sarahs are not here. Yeah, so 3 of 5. Yeah, I would agree with you. That would have
So that
passed.
passed. And however, we can also refine the subcommittee. City Councilor Reynolds.
Thanks. I can't speak for the council, and I'm not going to try to, but I'm going to lay out a fear here on the table. It seems to me there's a couple possibilities of outcomes here, that we focus our efforts on building a permanent spot and try to get it open by next summer. We can take a slower path and try to develop a permanent spot that might not get it built by next summer, but allows for more community input, more transparency, more time evaluating, et cetera, and run the risk that it won't be next summer. If we do that, if option B is what we shoot for, we then have a decision of, do we open a temporary spot or not? And thus far, the Parks Commission has advocated for opening a temporary spot. My fear is if we take the slow path and opt for a temporary spot and take this back to the council is going to look at it and say, we're not exactly rolling in money here, pouring a couple $100,000 into building a spot that would be used for 1 year doesn't make any sense. And so you then run the risk of not getting the temporary spot and waiting till summer after next to get this facility. So be careful with that. Whatever process this committee has, I hope you structure it in a way that you can get the input you need to make a decision definitely next time if you can't make it this time.
Yeah, definitely. My question is that if we made a decision tonight, would this come to the city council earlier than the mid-July meeting, Jason?
I'm thinking not, from what I've heard. I think Jason's probably right. It probably would be end of July either way.
So if it's going to be the end of July, then I don't feel like us taking a little bit of extra time to get a little bit more information then is terrible.
That's probably true, as long as you have a well-defined process so that you're sure that the outcome of getting more information isn't, well, I need a little bit more information.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Commissioner Westberg.
I'm sorry, I should have turned my thing off there.
That's okay. Yeah, I agree. I already have an opinion on this. If we wanted to get more information though from the groups, that could have a stake in this. And if it's not going to the council until mid-July anyways, then why not have the subcommittee get a little bit more information, and we come back to it and make a vote in July. Do you have something to say now, Rory?
I do, thank you. I forgot what my question was.
Okay.
And it's one kind of for Elaine. My understanding was to put a temporary, something back on a temporary basis in Upper Luther. We were looking at $25,000 or something like that. Do we have any idea of what?
I think it was 50 to 75 is what.
It was, yeah, it was higher than that. So it was 50 to 75, just considering the different components that we would need here. We need a final design to do it. We need to still go through some permitting process, and then we also need to fund the construction. So I would actually suspect we're looking at the higher end of that estimate.
Okay, so I apologize. I said a couple hundred a minute ago. I was clearly over the top exaggeration. Apologies.
Well, with inflation these days, tomorrow it could be. So
it quite possibly true. Yes.
Yeah, my biggest goal here is that we get a bike skills area open for the bike community in the shortest amount of time. If getting more information and then voting on the July meeting is where we want to go, then I'm okay with that. Commissioner Cohen?
I will make a motion that the subcommittee that the vote approved to be formed consider not only which site or sites would be the most appropriate, but also work with staff to obtain input from impacted or potentially impacted user groups.
Yep. Do we have a second for that? Commissioner Burstein?
I second the motion.
Okay. So we have a motion on the table. City, can we get a roll, please?
Yes. Chair McCarthy,
Aye.
Vice Chair Struck,
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen,
Aye.
Commissioner Westberg,
Unmuted, Rory.
Aye. Aye.
Commissioner Markson, and Commissioner Burstein.
Aye.
All right, so that has passed. All right, so where we are at with the bike skills area is we have a subcommittee that's going to meet in June and come back with a recommendation in July to the commission. And we will vote then on the bike skills area. Vice Chair Struck.
I think we need to form or make the names or individuals that want to serve on the subcommittee.
Okay, everybody put up your hand who wants to be on the subcommittee. All right,
Somebody's got to do it.
yeah. Okay, I don't mind doing it either. Okay, so the subcommittee is going to be Chair McCarthy, Commissioner Burstein, and Vice Chair Struck. All right.
Jody, Don Cohen, you understand that my only reason for not wanting to volunteer for that committee is not for lack of interest. It's perhaps having too much interest in it. And
Yeah,
so-
no, I totally agree. I think
So if you've got,
yeah, no, I totally get that. But we're gonna get this done and we're gonna vote at the July meeting to move this forward and get the bike skills area open. Okay, Commissioner Westberg?
Are we going to leave standing then our recommendation to reopen to the council that they reopen, in the interim, they reopen the bike skills area in Upper Luther Burbank? And then the council's free to reject that,
Yeah, I think
depending
so.
on, okay.
Yeah, I say let it stand. All right, we're gonna move on now to item 8 in our schedule, which is the 2022 planning and meeting schedule update from Ryan Daly.
The planning schedule was provided in your packet. I don't have any other additional updates other than now we have an additional July item. So I will be inputting that and possibly shuffling that July meeting a little bit, moving an item off there. I think it's beneficial to keep a more limited agenda for us to be able to move through and have these conversations. So Chair McCarthy, I apologize, Vice Chair Struck, let's connect in the next couple of weeks on a little bit of a reshuffle there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you, Ryan. Okay, so now we're to the 9th item, which is if any commissioners have any reports or work plan updates. Does anybody have anything to report? I am going to point at Commissioner Burstein, who was telling me about the pickleball experience at Luther Burbank the other day. Maybe you could give us a pickleball update, please.
Sure. So at Luther Burbank, the other day, just pickup game in the afternoon, there were 12 people. I also was there the next morning and Ryan shouted at me wanting to know if I needed a cot to live there permanently. But there were another, let's see, I think there were about 12 people the next morning off and on. At the peak, it was probably about 15 people. So it's definitely getting used both in the morning and in the afternoon, as long as the weather is permitting.
Perfect. I do remember you saying that you thought it might need some pressure washing on the edges because it was getting
Yeah, it is. there is a lot of debris building up along the edges, especially on the west end by the wall. And it's not quite slippery where you're automatically, even walking gingerly, you're going to fall, but it's going to get there, especially if we continue with the wet weather.
Yep, this has been, this spring has been something else. All right, does anybody else have anything that they wanted to report? And Ryan, you come back on. Is there anything that you wanted to share?
No, I popped on. I appreciate Commissioner Burstein and the group informing us of those things that they encounter in the park system. It's those additional eyes and ears that are extremely helpful. So I was jotting down notes to share with park maintenance, and now that it's cottonwood season, you'll see a lot of that out there too. So thank you.
Perfect. All right. Thank you everyone for staying. The next regular Parks and Recreation Commission meeting is July 7th at 2022 at 5:30 p.m. The time now is 8:33 and the meeting is adjourned. However, as a reminder to commissioners, please stay seated until the city staff has terminated the Zoom broadcast. Good evening and stay safe and healthy. Thank you, everybody.